After several months of quiet after a page turned on a championship journey, the dawn of another season makes way for a chance for the drivers to write a brand new chapter. Beautiful Daytona Beach brings the sand, sun, and action for the 7th season of the 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. Welcome to the virtual Daytona International Speedway, the stage for a pair of races set to decide who starts and where they do, where in the opener. And alongside everyone on our coverage tonight on the KBueno Racing Network, Francisco Bacallao and Keelan Belsha, I am Kenneth Bueno. We welcome you in to our Drop in the Hammer pre-race show. Francisco, it has been since May since we've ran in this 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. We already documented some of the changes, some of the things we are expecting to see this campaign around as we end 2024 and head into the new year. But how exciting is it to finally be back on track with the 4-Wide crew?
Yeah, I'm very ecstatic to be here high atop the Daytona International Speedway to bring to our viewers some more 4-Wide action. Once again, it's been a long time since the last time you and I were up atop of a racetrack covering this series. It's been over 4 months now, and I'm excited to see what this brand new season has to bring with us. So many changes, so many new drivers, but also a lot of the same olds, which is what we love about this series. And well, I can't wait to unpack that with yourself and with Keelan as we progress through our pre-race show.
A mix of old and new in 4-Wide, a mix of old and new in our broadcast booth this season, because joining us, hopefully for the remainder of the Season 7 campaign, is none other than Louisiana's own Keelan Belsha. Keelan, first of all, welcome. It's so exciting to have you back ever since Homestead, Miami, where we had our OG KBRN broadcast. And when looking at this season, when looking at this series and all the new drivers joining in, all of the old drivers returning, you think of all of what happened last season as it enters into this one. I'd say that 4-Wide is on a high set of momentum, and this might be, according to many, the most competitive 4-Wide season yet.
And that's what I've been hearing. Thank you, Kenneth, for having me up here. It's going to be a great season of action. I'm excited for it. Like you said, some new things happening that are kind of back to the old things. Next Gen car back here for Season 7. And that is something I am very excited to see in this season of 4-Wide Racing action starting here at Daytona. The schedule, very diverse all across the board. It's just going to be a great season, and looking forward to get it started with getting the lineup set for next week in tonight's duels.
And that's a perfect segue. Season 7 has a brand new schedule to it. We covered it at Homestead at Miami Speedway months ago, but this is the full confirmed schedule for this new season of the 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. We are back, Francisco, at the World Center of Racing to kick off the year. We took Season 6 off. We went to the West Coast with Auto Club Speedway, held the duels and the opener there, but there's no place quite like this Daytona International Speedway to kick off a season, and that leads into a very new but very fun Season 7 schedule.
It just feels right to be at Daytona for the start of the season. It feels appropriate when you do just that, having the duels and, of course, the main events, which we'll be having next week at the same time. And tonight is all about just getting there, but you look down that schedule as you prepare for your regular season run. We move into Auto Club to really get the things going with the traditional racetracks, and you see Bristol's on there pretty early. Watkins Glen is an early road course, of course. You have New Hampshire back on the schedule. Martinsville's going to be an interesting one for sure. Kenneth, first time this series goes to Martinsville. We have another road course later on in Dakota. Dakota makes its return. And then, of course, Daytona ends the regular season with Wilkesboro being the playoff opener. That first round is definitely a wild card round, if you will. And if you could get to that second round, it could give you an opportunity to once again race for a championship at Homestead Miami Speedway, where we have the last 2 seasons now.
We have a bunch of great tracks all over the schedule. We are happy to take along the schedule with us and be on our virtual tour. We hope that you are excited as well. Many of the new venues going into this one, like a Martinsville and a North Wilkesboro, both being points races, while North Wilkesboro was just an all-star race last season, and all the returning tracks, of course, with Daytona being the opener for the first time since Season 5. We bring in the word new just because everything in a new season always is going to be fresh, something that we have to unwrap and unpack throughout the 2024 campaign this year. Why don't we get into some of the teams we'll see on track throughout this new 4-Wide Racing season? And we will start with the team that has the crown. KBueno Racing goes into this one winning the last 2 Drivers' Championships with both Jaden Porter and Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Francisco, you're going to be there part-time, joining us for some races on track. Luke Canup, the multi-time winner last season, the driver from Arizona, he will join that KBueno Racing stable. But they will expand to a secondary team, KBueno Racing Jr. with Steven Stempian, very strong driver from Massachusetts, with Rodney Roberts and Steven Maggio, a very exciting 3-man lineup. And Francisco, there is the large lineup of Drinkin' Bros Racing talent, and it is top-loaded.
It is very loaded. This squad is definitely full of a couple of contenders. You look at Eric Schaefer, Brandon Banks, those are some consistent crew. But of course, you look on there, you see Lawson Peel, former champion of the series, runner-up a couple of times, I think for a second crown. And then you look at the second Drinkin' Bros Racing squad, and it's equally just as good. You see Daniel Michel, you see Joe Sanchez, a couple of veterans there in Monier Kivett, and a new face was there as well. And here we have the traditional Murray Reedy Motorsports lineup, Keelan.
Greg Lautenslatter on there. Tyler Murray, a guy I've spoken to before the show today. He's excited for the season. Kyle Benson as well, who was contending for the championship there late last year. For Stonks Motorsports here, Colin Forster, a guy who has won here at Daytona several times in the past, along with Lance Hill and AJ Green. And then there's not Stonks, but still kind of Stonks, Kenneth.
Yeah, this is a secondary team. Used to be Skybox, who won the team championship last season. They've got heavy hitters Ryan Pandicio, Curtis Kelly, and 5-time winner last season, only in his rookie campaign, Brandon Hawkin. He's set to be a threat. Then an expansion of a newer team to the series. Trevor Haley in his sophomore campaign brings some friends with him. Nicholas Bauman, Craig Rowe, Dustin Hicks, and Juan Escamilla form the 5-man Dark Horse Racing team running the Ford Mustang Dark Horses, and then a single-man crew with the Chevrolets. Mikey Neal leaving KBueno Racing. He joins his own Buckeye Racing squad, and that is the lineup for the most part of Season 7. A ton of independent drivers as well, some other teams that we may have not gotten to, but that is mostly what we'll see over the course of the season. Very exciting, Francisco, because of all the new guys we have, and if there's one trend that we have taken note of throughout our time covering this series over the last several years is that rookies are always strong. You can never count them out, and many times when drivers come in with the yellow rookie stripes on the back of their race cars, it doesn't matter. They are still strong, and they still contend for wins and championships.
Well, I think the first thing you have to look at is the fact that last season we had a true rookie win the championship in Ethan Fonseca Moreno, but then you look back at the last 3 seasons, and you had drivers in their first full attempt at the schedule win the championship. Lawson Peel had his first full attempt at the schedule back in Season 4. He won the championship. Jaden Porter, in his first full-time effort, won the championship in Season 5. So it's been a trend for that to be the case, and it would be very difficult for that to be the case because of how competitive the series has gotten, but it wouldn't be surprising because of that trend. And of course, last time out at the Homestead Miami Speedway, Ethan Fonseca Moreno with a dominant effort to really capture that championship after entering the race in the standings second in points to Lawson Peel. Got every point he needed to get that 5-point victory in the standings over Lawson Peel. Brandon Banks and Kyle Benson in your top 4, with Jaden Porter finishing in 5th, and then you see a couple of rookies in there with Patrick Thompson, Trevor Haley, and Pandicio in your top 10. And again, just thinking back to that Homestead Miami Speedway race, that was an incredible drive from Ethan Fonseca Moreno when he needed it most. Those last 2 races, I'll tell you what, the second he disconnected at Phoenix, it's like something clicked inside where he said, I am not going to let this affect me, and he closed out the season with 2 wins in 2 races.
And he had everyone on the edge of their seat, including us in the broadcast booth. When we saw Ethan disconnect at Phoenix, we thought surely his championship bid was over, but then he returned, the race fell in his hands, he made the most of the opportunity, and then won those 2 races in a row. You look at that top 10, that's from Homestead Miami. We will detail a lot of what we saw at the end of last season next week when we come back to the World Center of Racing for the official Season 7 opener of the Fort Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. So much exciting content to bring to you here on the KBueno Racing Network, and so much excitement we're ready to bring to you tonight with about 5.5 minutes left in qualifying. Keelan Belsha, Daytona International Speedway, a classic NASCAR venue ever since it opened back in 1959, and it is very much special anytime you come to the Speedway.
Just a beautiful, massive speedway right in the heart of Daytona Beach, Florida, the 2.5-mile racetrack, home to some of NASCAR's most iconic moments and their crown jewel race in the Daytona 500. And on this iRacing side of things, it's one of those unpredictable beasts that you can never quite tame until you do for that final time coming off turn number 4. And even then, you're not safe. Moves can be made anywhere here, and in these next-gen cars, runs can be built so easily with just a couple groups of cars. I feel like we're going to have a lot of comers and goers, and it's just about being there late, because this World Center racing, it's tough.
And you're just seeing some of these shots in sim, just of the magnificence of this speedway. Such a large track and such a staple of NASCAR racing. Anytime you come here, whether it's in the real life or virtual world, it is so special, and the drivers will have that in mind as they get ready to get the first of 2 duels here at Daytona. Let's give you a rundown of the car we're using tonight and for the season, Francisco. It's back to the future, as I'd like to call it. The next-gen car returns to action. Season 6 now stands as the only campaign in 4-wide history where they use the Xfinity Series cars, but we're back in the Cup Series machines. Here are the stats, horsepower, and gearbox. The drivers have gotten acclimated to it over the last several seasons before the Xfinity car was introduced, but now we're back into it.
We are indeed back into it, but it has been a while since these drivers have used it regardless. I believe the Season 5 finale being sometime in July of 2022. So it's been just over 2 years since these vehicles have been used in this competition. So we'll see if everything last time we used it is exactly the same, or if there's some slight changes. Of course, setups change, and even NASCAR with having more information with the next gen now than they did in its first season at the time that it was being used, certainly going to make a difference in that situation. But the return of the Cup Series cars, Kenneth, and we're at the super speedways. These are the tracks where they have the most amount of side drafts. So considering tonight is a very short event, 2 events, but very short, and only I believe the 10 highest average finishing positions get points. Points are going to matter if you want to make the playoffs, considering I don't think the regular season's winning in. You definitely want to make sure you get as many points as you can. We saw just last season, even though it was a different format, points are going to matter all the way now through the end of the regular season and even the playoffs, and you have to prioritize them at all costs.
Wins always mean everything, and that's a great point. The switch over from that points championship we ran last season, they gave us a classic, but we're back to that playoff win and you're in system. So the golden ticket back in the conversation. That will mean a lot, not in this race, but surely when we get strapped in for next week's season opener right here at the World Center of Racing. Speaking of the duels, we've got a specific format we're going to let you know about in just several moments. With that, we've got 2 minutes and 15 seconds left until qualifying ends. Dane Cruz right now at the top of the board. But talk about the duel format. Keelan Bushnell, we look at the 2 duels going 30 laps each, 15 minutes intermission that we'll have in between duel 1 and duel number 2. The winner of duel 1, they lock themselves in as the pole sitter for the Daytona race next week. The driver who wins duel number 2, they will be the driver sitting on the outside of the front row, but for everyone else, they go by average finish of the 2 duels.
And that's why you got to run well in both of these races. And I think it's interesting because usually you hear about this dual format, they split them half and half, and that's where you start. But instead, you're kind of putting the pressure on the drivers here to keep their car up front and run well in both of these duels tonight. So you can't just finish 5th in one duel and think you're good. You're going to have to do it again to get a good starting position next week. But, I mean, that's just going to be a strategy that some of these guys are going to have to do. If you're good at Daytona, you'll be good at Daytona, and you're going to have to do it 2 times in a row to make sure you're starting well next week.
Well, Francisco, starting well is a conversation at these super speedways because oftentimes we talk about the importance, but sometimes the lack of importance of track position at these large super speedways just because things change so quickly. But as a driver, when you're getting focused for duels instead of the usual qualifying that'll put you on the grid, what is that mindset like, and how different is it from a usual 2-lap qualifying session where it's just you and the racetrack?
Well, the only time these guys get to be alone on the racetrack is to set their first qualifying position for the first event. Outside of that, everything they do is going to involve draft and making passes. So it kind of feels like an F1 sprint race, if you will, especially with how short they are, but also the fact that both of them are going to matter. It's not like Keelan was saying, it's not like you have a certain numbered part of the field in one duel and the other one in the other one. No, everybody's all together, and you have to do it twice, and the 10 best from both of them are the ones that start in the front of the field. So how you handle it and how you go about it is going to be interesting, and it's definitely going to be still a situation where you want to avoid a wreck. So we'll definitely see some split strategies from most of our contenders, maybe some trying to go out there, be aggressive, lead laps, stay at the front, and maybe some guys play conservative and see if anything happens from the over-aggressiveness in such a short race.
Well, the last time we were here at Daytona for some dual races, Joe Sanchez out of Drinkin' Bros Racing and Steven Stempian, now a part of KBueno Racing Jr., they were the winners of Duel 1 and Duel 2. Some of those races ended up in overtime. Do we have that same phenomenon happen tonight? It is all a guessing game. But on the front row, we'll bring you trackside and to the starting grid for the first of 2 dual races we'll have here at the virtual Daytona International Speedway with our drop in the hammer starting grid. Dane Cruz, rookie from last season, enters in with the pole lap. 49.520 is where he'll start with P1 in duel number 1 with Christopher Bishop from Murray Reedy Motorsports on his outside in the front row. Back in row 2, Kip Easley, a new entrant into 4-wide competition, looks to impress all in starting third. Colin Forrester, several times he's been victorious here at Daytona. Can he do it to get himself a starting spot on the front row? Back in row 3, Jacob Locklear in the 84 joins this series once more, and rookie Juan Escamilla for Dark Horse Racing in his Ford Mustang Dark Horse will be on the outside in P6. Back in 7th is Drinkin' Bros Racing Michael Newbraw and the Season 4 Wide Racing TJ's Team Series champ Lawson Peel in his Chevrolet, going to be rolling outside of that row in position number 8. Rounding out the top 10, AJ Green, oh so strong at these super speedways whenever we come here. Brandon Banks joining with a new number 5. He'll join inside the top 10, Francisco.
Eric Schaefer is going to be starting in the P11 position with league owner Tyler Murray alongside him in P12. Adam Alexshire in that 91 is going to be 13th, with Rodney Roberts a solid qualifying effort in the 14th position. Mikey Neal is going to be in his number 88 in the 15th spot, with Ryan Pandicio, sophomore driver, in 16th. Craig Parks, another sophomore driver, will be in the 17th spot, with veteran of the series Kyle Benson in the 18th spot. Tony Kivett is going to be rolling off in the 19th spot, with Jesse Prees in the 00 going to be in the 20th position.
CJ Muner sits back in the 21st position, where he will be starting in this duel. Steven Stempian in the 8 car for KBueno Racing Jr. will be in 22nd. The next row has Brian Dixon in the 03 car alongside the 13 of Craig Lautenslatter to his outside. Jaden Porter in the 28 machine starts in 25th. Curtis Kelly in 26th. Daniel Michael will start his number 25 car from 27th, with Trevor Haley to his outside, and rounding out the top 30 will be Nicholas Bauman and Brandon Gills.
Behind them is 31st place Daniel Moore for Not Stonks, but still kinda stonks. Cody Kinsey on the outside in his new number, 97. He'll roll off from 32nd in duel number 1. Kevin D'Elia from Not Stonks, but still kind of stonks, will be in 33rd. Craig Rowe, new driver, returns to the series. He's going to be in 34th. And Francisco Bacallao, you're not necessarily in the racetrack. You're in the booth, but he's here. Wyatt Brackett in the 10, and Lance Hill set to roll off dead last, 37th in this first duel. We go only 30 laps, so it's relatively a short race, Francisco, but what are the keys to victory to get a pole position for next week's opener?
Well, last I checked, I am in the booth, not the racetrack, so
yes.
I don't think that 30 car's out there, unfortunately, for fans who are looking for that number 30 car. But the keys to tonight is going to be stay out of trouble. It's a short race, so you want to make the most of your opportunities, because it's not going to be easy to just get up to the front, but avoiding the wrecks and keeping your car clean. You want a clean race car. This car, the aerodynamics of it is very important, so staying up towards the front is going to be important. But for those back there, keep it clean and bite your time, because there's going to be trouble at some point. And you saw the track conditions there. It's a very cool evening here in Daytona. Uncharacteristic for September, but in sim, it is February, like it normally is in real life. Pace car makes that hard left turn, and we are dual racing here at Daytona with Dane Cruz leading the field.
They make their way down the back straightaway. Christopher Bishop takes over the race lead. A big push down the super stretch from Colin Forster. Bit of help behind there. Third car on the outside lane. Rookie driver Juan Escamilla. But here comes Dane Cruz with the run down low, Keelan, as they complete lap 1.
Dane Cruz gonna barely lead lap number 1 here in the first of the 2 Daytona duels. As you see that top line up there with Forster and Bishop, they got really tight on each other for those first 3 corners or so, and then it looked like Forster might have just barely got to the corner of him, and it kind of knocked their run up and allowed Cruz to pull away. He's got a car length out there on the bottom, but Bishop leading that top line. He is a fiend for that front position. But
that outside lane sort of dissipating quite a bit. You see the big gap between that blue and white Ford Mustang Dark Horse of Escamilla and that orange, white, and blue number 5 of Brandon Banks. They seem to be trying to get themselves together. Dane Cruz will lead by a nose at the exit of turn 4 already. First and second group starting to form separately as Bishop gets the run on the tri-oval, gets to lead lap number 2. Bishop entering his 6th season of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. No doubt, Francisco, that he is one of the OGs in this league, and right now leading this one beautifully with Colin Forster giving him the push.
One of the veterans of this series, has been there as long as we've seen him and as long as we've covered this series, and right now he's leading the field at Daytona. Not a stranger in doing just that, but so far it's a good start to this race for him and a good start to his duel after starting on the outside of the front row. And with these cars, Kenneth, that outside definitely works a lot better than with other vehicles, so if enough cars get up on that outside, it's going to be difficult to make a pass and difficult to pass him.
A look on board from Bishop, already a several car length lead over Cruz, that black and red Toyota Camry on the inside. This is something typical of these super speedways with these cars. Keelan, oftentimes we'll see the organization good enough on the high line getting that leader up top to a lead that is multiple cars long. Dane Cruz now fighting back on the inside, but the run off of the 31 degrees of banking so strong to ignore if you're anyone on that bottom side, hence why Bishop is holding on to the lead effortlessly.
And that's why he's sticking to the top of this racetrack. I've noticed it in A-Fixed and NIS races I've done here. That top line's so much easier to get organized in these cars than if you rent a truck or an Xfinity car. And they're making the most of it up top right now. Cruz is fighting back on the bottom as we ride along with Eric Schaefer back there in his Busch Light Plano machine. He's just kind of laying back, not making any moves. No sense in making, a little bit of hard push there. No sense in forcing that middle line this early as only 5 laps into this Daytona duel.
Working with his teammate, that is the rainbow-colored number 12, Lawson Peel, the Season 4 champ. He's on the bottom side, so Schaefer just getting tucked in line with his Drinkin' Bros Racing teammate. These guys have been working together for several seasons in their 4-wide careers, so no surprise they are nose to tail on the racetrack. Bishop continuing to lead, but we'll see multiple teams, Francisco, working together over the course of this race, and you'll see those 3 gold Ford Mustang Dark Horses at the top of the racetrack, several cars back in line. Here is league owner Tyler Murray with Kyle Benson and Craig Lounslager right behind him. Tyler posted on Twitter earlier this week saying that in honor of Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month, him and his teammates at Murray Reedy Motorsports are decking their cars out in all chrome gold, just to give that awareness to pediatric cancer and to give awareness to the kids that unfortunately suffer from that disease. So Tyler repping a good cause with his teammates. All 3 of these Mustangs nose to tail down the super stretch.
Definitely a good action to spread awareness about pediatric cancer, not something, cancer in general is obviously a tough fight that we're fighting against to try and find some treatment and especially a cure. We all would definitely like that. I've lost family members due to that illness, but these guys getting that recognition for it and being able to represent, you definitely like to see it.
And so here's our side-by-side camera, something we'll be using over the course of the season as Dane Cruz gets split through the middle 3 wide. Kip Easley for Drinkin' Bros Racing in turn takes over the race lead, but that is a car at the back end of the group that has lost the draft. Francisco, who is that and what's the problem there?
It's like it's Daniel Moore in the 77 that's lost the draft, and he's not the only one, Kenneth. We have Michael Newbraw also. He is the last place runner in this race right now, 24 seconds off the lead. I'm pretty sure that he dropped back on the first lap and just happened to lose the draft. So not an ideal situation for him, but certainly trying not to lose a lap here if he can. I mean, he's already half a lap down on lap 8. If he wants to keep on the lead lap, he's probably going to need a caution. And there's also two cars that have kind of lost the draft and are well ahead of these two. It's the 88 of Mikey Neal and the 9 of Brandon Gillis. Those two are kind of together on the racetrack.
These are guys that desperately need a yellow flag. Remember, we talk about these 30-lap duels. They're not a long time here at Daytona, so keep in mind that for those guys at the very back of the field, they may even get put a lap down should this race continue to go the way it is. Things have absolutely shuffled up in the mid-pack and in the front of the field. Stonks Motorsports finding each other courtesy of that Nebraska Camaro AJ Green to the point at Daytona.
This racing has been really hard up front here, guys. It started a couple laps ago with Dane Cruz slamming the door on Christopher Bishop. And those guys in the top 6, 7, 10, they were all trading positions back and forth with heavy runs and heavy blocking. And it played into the favor of A.J. Green there, but Colin Forster finding his way around him with Juan Escamilla in tow with him. But now it's going to be Kyle Benson in the 38 trying to make a move down there with Steven Stempian down there. Forster plays the block. Cruz with a big hit to Escamilla. This racing is intense up here early in this duel.
And Escamilla is going to look to lead his first 4 wide laps, even if it is in unofficial competition through these dual races. But Colin Forster, the help from the Pennsylvania driver behind of Kyle Benson, they'll push to the front with Steven Stempian, that Chevrolet, back in 3rd place to cross the line for the first third of duel number 1. Here comes Benson swinging up high. He'll work with the Mustang of Escamilla on the top side. Kyle Benson, the defending winner here at Daytona, now to the front by a nose.
And he didn't win that race by a whole lot, so it just goes to show you don't really need a whole lot to get the win here. You just need to be in front. And for Kyle Benson, it was enough in a crucial situation, his playoff hopes. But you see further back in the pack, look at the stack-ups that are going on in the 3-wide action there towards the back end of the pack. And that's going to be the case all night long. Here you see Rodney Roberts towards the back end of it, and just in front of him is the 03 of Brian Dixon, and even his teammate Jaden Porter is just up there trying to get around. That's the 97 of Cody Kinsey that they're trying to split, and there's some contact there between Trevor Haley and Brian Dixon.
That's the Season 5 champ of Porter, so he's in a tough situation. He was the champion with the next-gen cars the last season we ran it up until now, so lots of trouble there. KBueno Racing trying to get themselves together. Ethan Fonseca Moreno is not in this session, so Porter has some limited teammates. Only Stempian, a former affiliate of Mikey Neal, but even then, some other drivers he has to find right now, just getting his way through the field. Still at the front, Kyle Benson, the race leader by several car lengths over that inside lane. Juan Escamilla in second, fighting for third, Dane Cruz, and Steven Stempian. Actually, never mind, that's Colin Forster, car number 99, Waffle House Chevrolet on the inside. And for Steven Stempian, Keelan, a driver who is found success with this car in several other series that at least I've covered, but in this series, only 2 wins and some starts here and there. It seems like he's backing up the entirety of this inside lane, and he's falling off. Is something wrong with the 8 car? He has blown a motor.
He's blown up.
Wow.
So Steven Stempian in the middle of the draft has blown his engine. That got everyone out of shape, Francisco, and it is completely evaporated any sensible pack racing at the front of the field.
Yeah, the middle of the field's kind of separated into a second pack just behind Cody Kinsey, and they're trying to see if they can catch up. It is very strung out behind from back there, and maybe he was being aggressive trying to push the cars in front of him. That's really the only way that car could have blown up. These cars, they don't overheat a whole lot unless you do something bad, and it looks like right there it just went off. And I'll tell you what, he was very lucky right here not to spin the car out, because this car with the floor it has and the diffuser, it could easily go around on the apron. So kudos to him on not being able to control the car and not letting it spin on him. And fortunately, because of that, we're still under the green flag, and a couple of cars have caught back up to the pack and have a pretty good run towards the back end. But it looks like the last of the main cars in the draft is going to be that 03 of Brian Dixon. Eric Schaefer trying to see if he could catch back up with help from Alishai, but it's really strung out. Then you have to go back to the 0 of Jesse Prees, where they're leading a couple of single file cars on there. But also, if you look in front of the leaders, Kenneth, a couple of cars might be going a lap down. That's Michael Newbrawl. That's just in front of this lead pack by a handful of seconds, as Steven Stempion has actually gone a lap down already with that damage. So look out for the leaders to try and get by both Moore and Newbrawl.
Big-time engine illnesses there for the aid of Steven Stempion. He was one of the defending dual winners, the second dual winner here at Daytona back in Season 5. Made some starts at the beginning of that campaign and did not return. So it's been quite a while since we've seen Stempion take with this competition, but not a good start to the duels early. He'll be in a tough position. He will have a chance, though, to rebound Keelan in duel number 2. So this is the good news with this format in the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series, is that you're not only selected for one duel at a time. You're basically available to run both. And then since we have the rule of the average finishing position giving you your starting order, Steven Stempion could go out and win duel 2. He'll still be in second place when we get to the season opener next week. But for now, big time troubles, and he'll have to work over to stage or duel number 2 to try and get something positive out of it.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. We covered in the Dropping the Hammer pre-race show about this format. It's that you can completely mess yourself up in duel 1 and be good for duel 2. I'll tell you one car that Stempion blowing up really hurt. It was Colin Forrester in that 99, because he dropped all the way back from battling for the lead to as low as 16th at one point, but we saw him make that move to the bottom right in behind that car in front of him, that blue and white one. Can't tell who that is, but it's really helped him or hurt him, and now he's trying to rebound as he has dropped to the bottom, trying to make up some ground, but it is Kyle Benson remaining out front.
Still by several car lengths, but a new man at the front of the inside lane, the Indiana driver, Trevor Haley, in his sophomore year of this 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. He's got command until now. Kyle Benson goes in front, some wiggles in the mid-pack. They hold on to it, and we stay green halfway home in duel 1.
Well, that was a close call for sure, Kenneth. You saw the stack-ups, how they can happen from just the runs they get. And we saw a lap ago, that huge run Trevor Haley got. We were on board with him, and you saw he went from about 7th in line, just ducked down to the bottom, had some help, and he got up to the lead. So if you have some help, you can definitely make it work within a lap or so. So keep that in mind as we now hit the halfway point in this duel, 14 laps to go. Trevor Haley goes up to the top line of this racetrack to lead everybody, and we'll see now what these guys are willing to do in the second half of this race.
A look on board from Haley, working with his teammate, new teammate for this season, Escamilla, and that's where things will matter here at these super speedways, Keelan, getting your teammates and friends with you for Dark Horse Racing. Last season, Trevor Haley was really the lone man on his ship, trying to make some friends with drivers around him and definitely earn the respect as Kyle Benson is in trouble, getting almost everyone involved right behind a huge crash, bringing out what will be our first yellow flag of duel number 1. Lawson Peel among those involved. AJ Green, Cody Kinsey, and Kyle Benson, the man who got loose on the inside lane and basically stacked everyone up.
Oh, and it looks like it was a push gone wrong from Cody Kinsey. It sent him sideways, and that blocked the whole racetrack, Kenneth, and caused a big one early.
There's Kyle Benson, a bit of damage on the right rear of his Dude Wipes Ford Mustang Dark Horse, but for the most part, a ton of other drivers collected in the mayhem. We'll take the replay and see the second look at how everything went down on the speedway. So you were looking at Kyle Benson, and this is everyone else about in front of him. This is the push from Cody Kinsey that we'll see in turn 3 and 4 go a little awry and get everyone else out of shape. Keelan, it's a part of super speedway racing. One driver makes a mistake or a faulty push will send everyone all over the place and most likely will cause a yellow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things you have in these pack racing, and I think that could be a product of this race car too, because it's hard to hit somebody like that in a truck and wobble them up like that, but with these cars, it's harder to save. So when you have an issue like that, it just really stacks up everybody behind you. Yeah, just a tough push there. Wonder if Escamilla coming down maybe mess with the air on that 38 car, but I mean, this took out just about everybody but the top 2, so just one of those big ones that you're going to see here at Daytona.
Jaden Porter among those involved. Stonks Motorsports getting swept up in all of this. Here's a look from Craig Rowe, one of the newer drivers on Dark Horse Racing. Well, he had a huge hit to the back end of AJ Green, comes sweeping down on Jaden Porter. And then Lawson Peel among those that get tagged in late. Brian Dixon sweeping down the racetrack, takes out the Exalta Chevrolet. and it gets a ton of drivers involved in our biggest accident and first caution of the night here on lap 19 with about 12 laps to go. Several drivers on pit road, top 6, have stayed out. It appears Trevor Haley, who was at the front of the field right before the yellow came out, Francisco, he has brought his Ford Mustang Dark Horse down pit road. Obviously, a ton of drivers in there for damage repair, but a bit of the strategy here, getting a bit of splash of fuel. Not sure if that's necessary, though, in only a 30-lap sprint.
Maybe some tires, but I'm not sure. The track temp is really cool, so I don't think tires are going to be wearing all that much, and they're not going to be really heating up to the point where they're going to be all that bad. So I think it's just playing the track position game. Maybe you want to be a little bit further back, kind of hang back in case something like this happens again. And this is where we see the split strategies like we were talking about earlier, how maybe some guys feel more comfortable in the back and others want to get to the front and feel more comfortable there, especially as we're getting near to the end of this race, because you know that that's where the you need your best possible finish to prepare yourself for that second duel, because in that second duel, you already have a finish to go off of, and you're just trying your best to figure out that math of if you finish in a certain spot, what that's going to do. So I feel like the racing in the second duel might be just that little bit more intense for just that reason itself. And we're probably going to take the 1 to green here, Kenneth, so it looks like it's going to be a 10-lap shootout here to figure this all out for the first one.
A great point you make there about the approach for the second duel. If you have a tough one here in the first one, you're going to start to race a little more aggressively in that second duel, and some drivers will be a little more conservative based on how they finish. Some drivers won't. It'll all be a matter of time when we get to that second duel, but nonetheless, Tony Kivitt, one of the 6 drivers to stay out, he will inherit the race lead as we cross the line with the iRacing official pace car turning its lights off shortly. And Adam Alashire, former winner at Daytona from last season, back in action with the number 91, this time a different font and a different car. Going to be rolling with the Toyota Camry this time around for Alashire, the 19-year-old from Sunbury, Ohio. Has a job as a car chief for a late model stock car team. Has been around a bunch of short tracks across the Southeast over the last several months and years. Has spent 4 years on iRacing, and I think the last year has certainly been very fun for Alashire. He will hold the inside of the front row, waiting for Kivitt to be that control car. Several others coming out of pit road. Francisco, you're looking at Daniel Moore, who was way beyond the pace, and Keelan, as we toss to those drivers who were about a lap down earlier in this duel, now they have a breath of life, given the fact that this yellow bunches everyone back up.
Yeah, it's a brand new race now, and with a bunch of cars getting tore up, those guys who were way back there who didn't get involved in this one, they're going to have a shot to drive their way back up through there. This is probably one of the easiest cars to carve your way through the field in my opinion. So they got life, and they got an opportunity to get the best finish they can now with 31 cars still on the lead lap. There's going to be opportunities for a lot of guys to get in this race and have a shot to win. And Francisco was talking about maybe that strategy of wanting to be a little bit further back. I think you throw that in with the fact that you probably don't want to be leading, taking that white flag if you want a shot to win these things, with how easy it is to get a run if you have somebody you like behind you pushing you. It's going to be pretty simple to get the lead. It's going to be all about blocking if you're the leader in that scenario. I just know if I'm taking the white flag in this race with how aggressive it's been up front so far, I'm going to be nervous.
And you probably don't want to be that first car. It's a danger zone in those last several hundred feet from the exit of turn 4 up until that tri-oval that leads you to that coveted start-finish line. We will take the green flag with 10 laps to go in the first duel. Again, a spot on the front row at stake if you are able to win any of these duel races. Green flag back in the air from Daytona. Tony Kivitt with a fantastic launch. Lawson Peel to help, and Alashire trying to get to full song on the inside in turn 1. Kivitt going down, then back up, joins his teammate Peel at the top of the racetrack. They also find Daniel Michel, the third car in line, that green and blue Chevrolet, also a member of that Drinkin' Bros Racing camp. They'll lead by several car lengths entering turn 3 as they look towards the line, Francisco, with 9 laps to go. And here come the moves. Trevor Haley on the inside.
He's trying to lead that inside lane there. He doesn't have immediate help right now, but you see a little bit further back some 3-wide action as the 5 car of Brandon Banks is making some strong moves, trying to get up towards this front part of the field to help some of his teammates out. But it looks like that outside is very strong, and there's Benson to the bottom. He's made some moves on this restart. That's actually Lautenschlager in the gold car, but he's still making some moves, and Trevor Haley's giving him a big push. He's actually going to get side by side for the lead here.
What a run this is out of turn 2. The Ford Mustangs working together to give Craig Lautenschlager the race lead in duel number 1. Kvyat fights back with a push from Peel on the outside. It will be 8 laps to go. Next time by, Lautenschlager has experience winning at these super speedways. Can he lock up a pole position in next week's season opener? Kvyat low leads by at least 1 car length. Peel will give him the push down the tri-oval. 8 laps to go from Daytona.
That restart really worked out well for those Drinking Bros Racing teammates up there. Kvyat took the top to have teammate Lawson Peel right in behind him, and now they got 3 out there leading the top. A little bit of contact there between Haley and our leader, as that 13 car of Lautenschlager is keeping pace. But this run that you just get down the straightaway for those Chevrolets on the top of the racetrack, it's going to make it hard to make that pass without a little shenanigans out of their group up there, as they are rolling on the top and down the straightaways.
Yeah, that inside lane has really checked up, and it kind of broke up towards the back end of the field, so they're losing a lot of momentum right now. And there you see just that outside all the way back to Colin Forrester really is starting to get up on that outside. You see some 3 wide here further back, and look at just how much the back end of this pack is broken up. Look how aggressively that is making a move there in the middle. That's the 48 of AJ Green. Looks like D'Elia and Pandisha made some contact as well. So these guys are getting really racy and not giving each other a lot of room, as Green is really trying to make that middle work. And here comes Eric Schaefer on the bottom.
But he has no help. Mikey Neal for Buckeye Racing almost looked down there, almost flirted with that Busch Chevrolet, but instead leaves him out to dry. A huge stack up entering turn 3. They remain 3 wide for several rows deep, and there are the heavy hitters that were taken out in that caution. Kyle Benson, Colin Forrester, AJ Green, all in the mid-pack. Remember, they are trying to gain position, not only to give themselves a shot at the pole, but to give themselves a better average finish when they take Duel 2 in just several moments. It'll be several laps to go from Daytona. Middle 3 wide is rookie Nicholas Baumann giving Michel the push in 1 and 2.
Wonder if we got a little bit of strategy here with these Drinking Bros Racing cars. You see the 3 down there. Wonder if...
Oh, that's not going to be good.
In the fence goes 25, ends up working itself out, and the 25 can have a big run.
Oh, down he goes!
He gets turned in front of the field. Mikey Neal, Adam Alshire, Lance Hill, and a big one in turn 3. Caution flag out with 5 laps to go at the stripe. And as Kyle Benson had the run of a lifetime down the super stretch, he catches Daniel Michel off guard, sends him into the wall, and that's where the domino effect begins. Second yellow here at Daytona in Duel 1.
Yeah, you could just tell with that block off of turn 2 with Peel on Michel that it was going to be an aggressive one on this particular lap, but that didn't stop Michel. He had such a run on that 76 that he gave him a shot, but Benson just had nowhere to go. He was on his bumper already, and that sent everybody spinning. Top 5 were able to get through. Everybody else had a piece of it in some way or form, and it just collected a lot of cars in this one.
There's a look at the replay on the right side of your screen. Again, it all begins with Daniel Michel, car number 25, that blue and green Chevrolet at the top. He just gets stacked up with the race leader, just picking up so much speed. And Keelan, you brought up the point at the beginning of this show, how these next-gen cars get into each other in the draft, how fast they are able to pick up the pace on a car right in front just because the air is giving them that opportunity to do so. It easily can be the difference of a couple miles an hour, and as they stacked up here, catching up to Tony Kvyat, that's where Benson really has nowhere to go, and that's where he catches Daniel Michel.
Yeah, I mean, nothing you can do there. I mean, if you're Benson in the 38 there, you're going to expect Michel to make a move with the run that he had, and looked like he just wanted to push Kvyat, but that's not going to work out. Stacked them all up, and that's how you get the incident that happened there right before we got into turn number 3. See if any cars hit pit road here. None of our top 3 do. And I think the first car that hit was Kyle Benson in that 38 to get some damage repaired along with AJ Green.
Second time that Benson is on pit road for damage repair, and he was just carving his way through the field. Had a shot at the race lead, had that stack up not occurred, but Drinking Bros Racing still in control. Remember, in Duel 1, the last time we were here at Daytona, which was in Season 5 with these next-gen cars, Drinking Bros Racing won that duel, courtesy of Joe Sanchez, so they can go 2 in a row. in these dual races this time around in the return of this Sacred Cup Series machine. Tony Kivitt, though, what a drive this has been, Francisco, all because of one pit call. And again, we talk about maybe strategy not mattering as much with fuel and tires in a 30-lap race, but if you have guys that do pit, guys that come in with damage, you will have someone like a Tony Kivitt, a man who stays out and says, why not? And he gives himself a viable shot with what'll be about 3 laps to go and counting, probably entering overtime territory to get pole.
It looks like we'll have a probably organic 2 laps to go shootout here for the restart here. And Tony Kivitt has driven a great race, and he's in a great spot right here. But how about that second row, Kenneth? Nicholas Ballman was about to go a lap down just before that first caution, and here he is sitting in the 3rd spot, a rookie driver in his first race of anything in 4 wide. And then alongside him, a fellow rookie in Keep Easley. He's in a similar situation. He finds himself up here in the 4th spot. So these 2 guys are going to be lining up in the 2nd row of the grid with 2 laps to go, with a shot at winning a dual race and potentially starting on pole for their first points race in this series.
Ballman is a 22-year-old, and what makes it even more impressive here, Keelan, is that he's only on his first year of iRacing. That is unbelievable. Really? He's made the ascent. Ballman going into this season, you know, you got to have some bravery to go into a series like 4 wide. It is, of course, a lot of fun, and you know, I'm sure Bauman is joining his friends at Dark Horse Racing, and that'll make his times a lot more fun. But you're joining a highly competitive league with guys like a Lawson Peel, who's considered one of the greatest of all time in this series. A guy like Brandon Hawken, who we don't see in Duel 1, but someone that we should expect to see as the season rolls through. You know, for Nicholas Bauman, as such a young driver in his first season, it is wonderful to see him just shine out this early and hopefully have a shot to get a pole position for the season opener.
Yeah, that definitely takes some courage. I remember my first year on iRacing. I mean, I hopped in some iScar races, the Super Speedway series, in like my first 3 months on there, but I shouldn't have, because I was shaking. I mean, I was nervous. There was one time, you remember Jack DeAndrea, Kenneth, I ended up 3 wide middle in a Talladega truck race for like 30th, and I had to alt F4. I was so scared. So, I mean, it's a mind game to come in here with such little experience and to come hop in what could be one of his first leagues and to be running up front in these super speedways. I was too nervous about wrecking the field, so I know there's mind games in that, what you're doing over there. And I mean, I'm still scared when I join races, so maybe I'm not the best advice giver. But
it kind of reminds me of when I first made my appearance. If you remember the Bunch and Lawn Care series, I made that a month into my iRacing career after 2 weeks of just even having a wheel, and it was here at Daytona. I made the transfer in the 3rd spot. You also made that transfer, Keel, and I remember being right behind you on that occasion, and I ended up P16 on that day in my first ever race, and you were calling that race too, Kenneth, so it's certainly a good memory here at Daytona for us.
And even at super speedways, as a rookie driver, that's more nerve-wracking than some of the other tracks that, you know, are more abrasive, require a lot more discipline, some skill. You know, Daytona, where everyone is on an even playing field, the nerves amp up because, like you say, Keelan, it's a fear of wrecking the field, a fear of embarrassing yourself, a fear of putting yourself in the wrong place, wrong time. Who does that and who does the opposite in these final 2 laps of the first duel? Tony Kivitt, Lawson Peel bring us to the green flag restart. Peel shuts down Bauman on the inside lane. They swerve up high. Kivitt with the advantage going back to turn 1.
Well, they're going to stack up right there. You see the push being given, but there's a stack up. Here comes Trevor Haley with the momentum on the outside. Craig Lounslager has some runs on the inside with the help of the 36 of Tyler Murray. So look for the second line to try and do something here as he's starting to get up to speed. But the 76 of Tony Kivitt has a good run, and he has a teammate in Lawson Peel behind him. Trevor Haley peeks to the top, trying to get to the outside of the rookie, but can't do that. They're 3 wide further back.
Trevor Haley peeking at a 3rd lane. Not sure if he will get any help, though. Murray Reedy Motorsports in the form of Kyle Benson tried to take the lead before the last yellow came out. Now they are nose to tail. Lounslager and Murray on the inside. They will take this to the white flag. Duel 1 is official. Tony Kivitt at the head of the field, and here comes Kip Easley down low trying to fight for P5.
Those chrome gold Mustangs ran out of steam on the bottom, and now it's that Menards 27 of Kip Easley trying to get a run
here.
He's going to be side by side down the backstretch. What a push from that car right behind
Look
him.
at Curtis Kelly giving him the push. They're 3 wide.
3 wide behind him. They're going to be side by side, 3 wide into 3 for the final time.
And pushing through the middle is the rookie, Nicholas Baumann. Jesse Prees is going to get turned in the back of the field. Kip Easley will lead them out of turn 4. And in the last several hundred feet here at Daytona, Kip Easley and Tony Kivitt fight to the start-finish line. Who's got the pole for the season opener? It will be Tony Kivitt. Give him the pole position next week. Oh my.
What a run off of turn 4 there for Kivitt, who got all he could take from the push from Lawson Peel. They were probably a car length or 2 back off of 4, and Peel just hammered down and pushed them all the way to the checkered to just edge him out at the line. And I mean, that's all you got to do. You can be so far back off of 4, but as long as you get to the stripe first, you're on pole next week, and that's what Tony Kivitt will be. What a run for those 2 teammates right there. And now, like we mentioned with the beauty of this format, Kivitt, he can go out and he can repay the favor to Peel in about half an hour, and they'll be holding down the front row.
You're right. 1, 2, 3 for Drinkin' Bros Racing after Kip Easley shot out of a cannon. What a run for Easley in his first real start in this 4-wide Racing TJ's Team Series. But Tony Kivitt will line up the front row here at Daytona 1 week from tonight. There was a huge crash on the back straightaway. We'll get to it with our side-by-side camera. And Francisco, this was the look from the rear end. Jesse Prees was the first one to get turned, and everybody at the back got the worst of it.
Looks like a run there from the 1 car, just pushing, and they all start running into each other, and around goes Prees, and a nasty hit here for Brandon Banks as he's going to get sent up the track, and oh my, Dane Cruz goes underneath him, sends the 5 into the fence and upside down. But we'll see an onboard look here from the 5 of Brandon Banks as he goes into turn 3. Probably not expecting to end up upside down.
It's a hard hit for Banks, someone who has found success at super speedways. Not named Daytona, but Talladega, and that is a brutal upside-down hit for Brandon Banks. He will be back, though, in duel number 2 to settle things out. So that's the good news, is that you have a second chance, theoretically, although the first chance might have been squandered quite a bit. Let's take a look at the unofficial results for duel number 1. And Tony Kivitt, the man on the front row, will lead us to green next Wednesday night. Kip Easley in his first real run with the 4-wide guys. He finishes in second. Drinkin' Bros Racing finishes the top 3 with Season 4 champ Lawson Peel. Curtis Kelly strong at the end. He wraps up with the top 4. Nicholas Baumann, who was shoved in the middle 3 wide, had a viable chance to take pole. Unfortunately, is just short, but P5 will definitely impress many. Kyle Benson recovers after being involved in 2 accidents over this 30-lap duel. Just shows you track position may not matter as much in these super speedways. Ryan Pandicio finishes in 7th. Craig Lounslager back in 8th. Mikey Neal in Buckeye Racing's number 88 will be in 9th. And Trevor Haley for Dark Horse Racing Francisco round out the top 10.
Finishing in P11 is going to be the 48 of AJ Green. Brian Dixon will end up in the 12th position. CJ Munier in 13th with league owner Tyler Murray in 14th. Daniel Moore, after being a lap down earlier in this event, will finish in 15th with Juan Escamilla in the 16th spot. Adam Allenshire will be in 17th with Daniel Michel in the 18th spot after being in that accident just before the last restart. Brandon Gillis will finish in 19th, and Craig Parks rounds out your top 20.
21st for Jaden Porter in that BBR entry, and we talked about how his teammate game was limited, and with Steven Stempian blowing his engine, and really compromised his race today. Michael Newbrough in 22nd, Craig Rowe 23rd, Eric Schaefer finishes in 24th, Colin Forster, who was up front early, in 25th, Lance Hill in 26th, Jesse Prees, who was involved in that last lap yellow, in 27th, Jacob Locklear in 28th, Brandon Banks, who had that terrible crash, might need somebody to check on him, finishes in 29th. And Christopher Bishop, who led some laps early in this race, finishes in 30th.
It's a virtual care center. We'll look through with Brandon Banks. Kevin D'Elia, 31st. Dane Cruz, 32nd after a strong run early. Cody Kinsey in his first race with that 97 on the side of his car. He's 33rd. Rodney Roberts ends up 16 laps down in 34th. Steven Stempian blows his engine early in Duel 1. He'll try and recover in the second duel, although he rounds out the end of that 35 car field. Francisco put his car behind the garage, then put on a headset and ran up to the broadcast booth with us. He is 36th. 76 technically, even though he was not in this race. And Wyatt Brackett was scheduled to run, but unfortunately did not make the green flag. That is your full unofficial results from Daytona here in Duel number 1. Tony Kimmett, the pole sitter now for the next week opener here at the World Center of Racing. We will have Duel 2 in just several moments right here on the KBueno Racing Network. But before we do that, we want to commemorate the 23rd anniversary of the tragic September 11th attacks on World Trade Center in New York City. Today is a day that we honor and remember those who sacrificed their lives to save others and those who fell in the tragic attacks again on September 11th, 2001. We ask you here on the KBueno Racing Network to join us in a moment of silence.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the virtual Daytona International Speedway, where we have just wrapped up Duel 1 here from the World Center of Racing. Tony Kimmett taking the pole position for next week's opener in exciting fashion. A photo finish with his teammate Kip Easley, and we will get a look at what happened on the final lap. Once more, a big crash, but again, the winning moment for Tony Kimmett here. Francisco, take us through what happens here on this white flag lap.
So right here, this is 76 leading on a 4-car breakaway. Trevor Haley gets a run and decides to go to the outside of rookie number 27. And there you see to the inside that 27 just has to kind of make his situation with Curtis Kelly. And it actually ends up working out for him because Curtis Kelly gets a good run. And right there, watch this push that Curtis Kelly gives to him in the middle of turn 2. Really pushes him all the way up there. They get a run, they get side by side, and then this move by the 14 kind of stalls them all out. They make some contact. Here comes Trevor Haley and Kyle Benson. They make some more contact. They're now 3 wide up in the front. We saw that wreck earlier with Jesse Prees that sees Brandon Banks go upside down. The 27 got clear, and he has Curtis Kelly. The top 2 are clear right now, but I'm not sure what kind of a push Lawson Field gave to that 76, because here he comes storming back. Another crash a little bit further back. And by a nose, that's the 76 crossing the line. See if we can get another angle of this.
It was a hellacious crash at the back. It got everyone involved back there. Lance Hill among those. Brandon Banks, we saw the flip before we went to break. And This is Tony Kivitt's run to the start-finish line, Keelan. Again, we talked about the danger zone being the last several hundred feet. You never know what's going to happen until you cross that start-finish line. And by 18 one-thousandths of a second, Tony Kivitt robs the Duel 1 win from Kip easily. Look at that. Photo finish between the Chevrolets.
Just by that much. And I mean, I talked about it a second ago, but what a push from Lawson Peel off of 4 all the way down the straightaway. And that's what I've been trying to hit on throughout this show, that the run you can get so easily in these cars. He has 2 cars to his inside, and he's still just, I mean, shoving them down there. And I don't know if maybe the cars on the inside, they couldn't get organized as proper as they wanted to, but I just know those 2 cars hooked up on the outside, they were moving, and they probably set their fastest fourth quarter lap of a meridian or whatever that stat is I see on Twitter every week. That's what they did right there, and it worked out to perfection.
A wonderful finish to that race. And Tony Kivitt, like we talked about, is going to be on the front row, leading us to the green flag. And Tyler Murray just letting us know they've got a couple minutes left in qualifying for duel number 2. So we most likely will see the same cast as we did in duel number 1. Tony Kivitt might be there for insurance purposes, like you said, Keelan, to give the push to his teammate, Lawson Peel, who helped him get to the win in this first duel, but he may just elect to stay out. He'll be the pole sitter regardless. He doesn't even need to run the second race, but for many of those guys, Francisco, a ton of them who were specifically involved in those crashes at the end, you know, they've got a race to run, and they've got a last-ditch effort now in this second duel.
And also, it's going to be important for those that didn't make Duel 1, if they're able to make the second duel, to at least get a lap in. That way they're guaranteed a starting spot or something of the sort, because 36 guys, I believe, are technically now eligible to be able to run next week. So there's still some room for a couple more guys that weren't in this first duel, but they're going to have to do something about it.
Well, this race will come down to the line. Duel 2 will be on the way. We'll be back in just several moments here on the KBueno Racing Network. You're watching coverage of the Daytona Duels for the 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. We'll be back in just several moments.
Can't wait to see that duel.
Great job, Francisco, by the way, in that transition. Replay and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there any way I can, skip it?
Back at the World Center of Racing, coverage of the 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series is brought to you by iRacing. Start your sim racing career today at iRacing.com. By TJ's Team. To learn more about the Foundation's mission to end pediatric cancer, go to wearmorethanAcape.com. KBuenoRacingNetwork.org. And by Paul's Setup Shop. It's been a frenetic night here from the World Center of Racing, and welcome back to our coverage on the KBueno Racing Network. Kenneth Bueno, Francisco Bacalhau, Keelan Belsha to give you all of the coverage. It's been a wonderful first half of the night, but now, Francisco, we've got another race to run with one new driver, the defending champ, Ethan Fonseca Moreno.
It's going to be the first time we see him in any kind of four-wide action as the defending champion of this series, so it's going to be interesting to see how he approaches it, also with the brand new car, the next-gen car. So a lot of question marks surrounding what he's able to do in his first time with this car, and seeing if he can really take it back to the top and challenge for that second championship in a row. Again, we've documented for a long time in this series now that nobody has that second championship. You look at guys like Lawson Peel, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, AJ Green, and Jason Porter. Those are guys that are definitely capable of winning a second championship, but just how competitive the series has been, especially with these cars, it's just been very difficult for it to happen. But we'll see how Ethan navigates it, and tonight will be the first opportunity for us to see him in this car.
Well, for those who don't know the miraculousness of the end of last season with Ethan Fonseca Moreno, here's a refresher to what happened at Homestead and Miami Speedway to give him the coveted title in his first season. A wiggle from Daniel Michel on the restart gives Moreno the run entering the first corner. This is only about 20 or so laps in, 24 laps into the booking. Moreno gets the run into the first corner. He ends up leading a ton of this race. Keelan, it just felt like he had this all in the bag. It was a wonderful, wonderful race for Moreno, helping strategy and getting everything right and getting everything flawless to capture his first title.
Yeah, that was a race, one of those where we were tracking bonus points all night. We were tracking strategy, because remember the Daniel Michel strategy could have thrown all this away for Moreno and would have handed the championship to Lawson Peel, but there you see he made the pass with 6 laps to go, ended up going on to lead 87 laps that night in Homestead and collecting 10 bonus points, which eventually would take him home his championship in season 6 last year. That was a great race, probably one of the most fun races I've called, and in a night where we were tracking points all across the board, bonus points for fastest lap, 0x bonus points, and ended up just being a Moreno win by 10 seconds, but ended up with just enough points to win that championship, and he'll be looking to defend that and start that defense this evening.
We will take a look at where Ethan starts in his pursuit to run well in the season opener, or at least to have a decent start. We'll take you trackside and bring you the drop in the hammer starting grid here in Duel number 2 at Daytona. Juan Escamilla, very strong in Duel 1. Well, he wants a front row starting spot as well. He'll be on the outside of, or the inside rather, of the front row. Jaden Porter, the Season 5 champ, returns to the next-gen car. He'll have a solid start for the second duel. They will both be the first to see the green flag. Colin Forrester, back and forth throughout the first duel, wants to have a calmer Duel 2 and get himself on the outside of the front row next week. Dane Cruz, who went for a crash later on in the goings in Duel 1, he'll be back in this one in row number 2, P4. Brandon Banks puts the 5 car in P5 inside row 3 for Drinkin' Bros Racing, and for not stonks but kind of still stonks, Curtis Kelly in the number 71 will be on the outside in P6. That'll be a new team name to try and get used to. Kip Easley, who was 18 one-thousandths of a second short of the Duel 1 win. He'll be back in this one from P7. Steven Stempian, who expired the motor in the first duel, he's back in it to try and get a solid finish from P8. To round out this duel's top 10, Francisco, you will find the driver of the 42, Christopher Bishop, who led from the front row in the first duel, and the 48, the North Carolina native of AJ Green.
Tyler Murray starts 1 spot better than he did in the previous duel in the 11th spot, with Mikey Neal alongside him in the 12th spot. Kyle Benson rolling off in 13th, with Craig Rowe in the 14th position. Row 8 is going to feature Jacob Locklear with Craig Lautenschlager, Lawson Peel, and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, championship rivals from last season, 2 defending champions of the series. They're going to be lining up next to each other in that 9th row, and Tony Kivett and the 4 of Trevor Haley are going to be in row 10.
Rodney Roberts rolls off in 21st in that KBRN machine. Cody Kinsey to his outside 22nd. Jesse Prees, who had that hard crash in the last lap of our first duel tonight, starts 23rd. Lance Hill in 24th. Daniel Michel, just talked about him in that Homestead strategy last season. He rolls off 25th, looking to rebound after getting wrecked earlier in the night. Brian Dixon starts 26th. Adam Alishire rolls off into 27th position with Nicholas Bauman, the rookie, in 28th. CJ Mueller starts in 29th with Daniel Moore rounding out the top 30.
31st will be the 53 of Kevin D'Elia. Ryan Pandicio, the teammate of D'Elia, on the outside of row 16 in 32nd. 33rd will go to Brandon Gillis. Eric Schaefer for Drinkin' Bros Racing will be 34th. 35th goes to Wyatt Brackett, hopefully making the green flag in the second duel with Michael Newbraw for Drinkin' Bros Racing outside of row 18. The final driver in our 37-car field, the 17 car of Craig Parks. So similar conditions to what we had in the first duel. Everything rather cool here at the World Center of Racing, although it is at a nice 69 degrees Fahrenheit. I'd say about 3 or so degrees cooler than duel number 1. But as we get ready to bring this field into 3 and 4, our final thoughts are probably from the first duel: keep it safe and don't cause a yellow. That is two things that are tall tasks here at Daytona, given the fact that we saw some crazy racing earlier on in the night. Juan Escamilla certainly impressed all of us with that run that he had in the first duel, helping out with his teammates Trevor Haley and Nicholas Bauman. What can he do in duel number 2 with a spot on the front row at stake? Pace car makes that left to the entry of pit road. 30 laps on the docket here from Daytona. Juan Escamilla and Jaden Porter bring us to the green flag. We are racing in duel number 2.
Pretty even start for both lanes. Porter was blinking just a little bit for a moment, but it looks like a surge here by the 41 with help from Colin Forsyth going to try and get him towards the front of the field. And he is going to lead that race, and he's actually going to go up and immediately put a block on Jaden Porter. So the 41 solidifies the top spot by going up to the top lane, and you see most of the field trying to figure out which lane they want to be in, as they're too wide for most of the field.
Escamilla, student at the University of Purdue, one of the Boilermakers at that esteemed university. He tries to shut the door on the fellow university driver in Jaden Porter. They are wiggling down the 18 degrees of the tri-oval. That outside line, Keelan, bobbled up, and it allowed Colin Forrester and Brandon Banks to take the lead without hesitation and really no pressure from anyone up top.
Yeah, Escamilla, he hopped up to the top, and that immediately stalled out any momentum that outside lane had, as they were just getting up to speed, and it stalled everybody out up there as Brandon Banks makes a move for the race lead in that 5 machine from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Oh, car on the apron.
Jacob Locklear, car 84. And he goes for a slide. Can he hang on to it? He does. Yellow flag does not fly here in Duel 2. He tried to get right under Colin Forrester under that double yellow line, Francisco. Not sure if that's a legal move you can do entering turn 3, but he tried it anyway and cost himself a ton of track position in the process.
Yeah, it looks like he had a huge run on Colin Forrester and got a push from Ethan Fonseca. Not sure if he got forced down there or what exactly happened there, but I think he felt like he was going to make the corner, and you see him just kind of straddling that apron the whole way through. And that's what I was talking about with Stempian, how he didn't manage to spin. A good job by Locklear not spinning himself, but he's going to end up in the back of the field now.
And with that, Brandon Banks takes control of the race, and Kip Easley, the Drinkin' Bros Racing teammate, follows him on the outside. Remember, Easley was 18 1/1000ths of a second short of the Duel 1 win. Some wiggles down low, though, between two of the Murray Reedy Motorsports Ford Mustangs. That's Christopher Bishop and that Bayside Mustang down low with the gold teammate behind him, league owner Tyler Murray. They get it all sorted out, and entering the top 10 is Ethan Fonseca Moreno. Keelan Belsha, the defending champ in that Prime Chevrolet, getting himself up through the field and getting his bearings together now that he's in the next-gen car again.
He rolled off in the 18th spot, and he has moved his way into the top 10, battling there with Curtis Kelly and Kyle Benson. And it's kind of funny, you come to these Daytona tracks where you feel like anything can happen and nobody's at an advantage. But the guys who we saw up front in the last duel are a lot of the guys who are up front leading right now. Christopher Bishop, who led a lot of laps early, is fighting with Brandon Banks for the race lead. Banks, a lot of experience, started his sim racing career in April of the year 2000. So he knows a thing or two about this sim racing.
One of the several guys in this league, Francisco, that have been around for a long while. And in stark contrast to guys like Nicholas Baumann, who's only on his first year in iRacing. But guys like Brandon Banks and Stempian have been around for so long. They've seen sim racing develop into the behemoth that it is today. Banks, though, gets shuffled in the middle, 3 wide, gets put through the sucker hole by Christopher Bishop. And in turn, they give Tyler Murray, the Talladega winner from last season, to the race lead.
And look who's moved up into third. It's that 57. He's actually going for second right now. Ethan Fonseca making the right moves, and he's going to go for the lead.
Here he goes down low. A hefty push from former teammate Mikey Neal gets him up front. Colin Forster, fellow Chevrolet, down there to help. And actually 4 Chevrolets in the first 4 cars of that inside line. Some guys brush the outside wall, but no harm, no foul. Will stay green, and Murray will fight back on that outside. A lane that was really dominant, Keelan, in the early portions of Duel 1. We saw often that outside groove, as long as they were organized and didn't have any problems with the pushes, they were able to beat that inside line by at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 cars at certain points throughout the race in Duel 1. Seems very different as Moreno tries to flirt up high, gets split 3 wide, but Mikey Neal is there to help. Putting on the cape is Mikey Neal, saving Moreno from being pushed back in the draft.
Making that middle line work, couple Chevy teammates working together there, and now we'll see if Moreno will repay the favor. If he'll go up top, he goes up top in front of Murray. Murray in trouble behind him, but he keeps his car straight for now, and he moved up and made the block to keep him at bay back there, did Moreno, but it really stalled everybody out back there, and now that is a top, 5-6 breakaway. They are pulling away, but I don't think they'll be able to maintain that. With how easily these cars make runs, they're going to be right back there coming off turn 4. Murray with his momentum, and Dane Cruz in behind him. We'll see if any move can be made as Moreno hops to the top side of Banks. Look at how fast these cars generate runs, Kenneth. They were all the way back there off of turn number 2, and a half lap later, they're right back in the mix for this lead.
And all of a sudden, they're in it. They'll try and recoup that outside lane, but it's Colin Forster, Steven Stempian, Lawson Peel, your current top 3. And if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you've got 2 cars that may be at mercy of being a lap down. Losing the draft early is Lance Hill in the 1 and Craig Parks of the 17, Francisco. We saw a similar spell for Lance Hill in Duel 1. For Craig Parks, it almost helped out. He got the draft back after the cautions came out, but both of them in jeopardy early on.
Yeah, they're definitely in jeopardy. They're going to at least have each other for company, so they shouldn't lose a lap in this situation, but they're definitely going to be hoping to caution just to gain some positions. And the 57 of Ethan Fonseca left out alone on that high side, so he's going to lose his track position relative to some of these guys at the front. So he's going to have to try and find something to do here soon if he wants to find his way back up. He has Rodney Roberts nearby as well for teammate help, that is, and he's going to try to find him to try and get back up there. He finds some space down in the 18th position. That's how quickly things can go awry, and he's got Jaden Porter throwing up to the scene.
And look on board from the 5-hour Energy Camry of Curtis Kelly for not stonks, but still kind of stonks. That's a kill, and that's probably the most random team name I've ever heard on iRacing, but you know, it works for what used to be Skybox, the group of drivers that won the team championship last season with the Xfinity Series machines. They've got a lot of positivity going their way, even though they weren't able to grab the Drivers' Championship. Kelly a part of that group, including Daniel Moore. You've got Adam Alishire in that group. You've also got Brandon Hawkins, 5-time winner in his rookie season there. And while he isn't in any action tonight, hopefully we'll see him throughout the 2024 and 2025 campaign. So good news for Curtis Kelly, who ran well in the first duel and seems to be sitting nicely in the top 5 in Duel 2.
He sits in that 4th position right there as Colin Forster in the Waffle House machine continues to lead the pack. Thought I heard an engine blow right there.
And a car spinning on the way in the back. That is the 24 of Craig Rowe, getting Rodney Roberts in it in a spin. A huge hit from the back. And that car went for a huge, huge flight. As we're going to monitor exactly who that was, it appeared to be Brandon Gillis in the 9 car that slammed into the spinning Roberts, and the caution is out for the first time in Duel 2.
I think when we get a look here at it, it's going to start at the 67 of Dane Cruz. I thought I heard an engine blow, and then I look up, and Cruz is slow, like a parachute came out from under him, and I think that may have been what started this incident here as we get a look at it.
So watch that second car on the outside lane. That's Cruz. And yeah, the engine goes poof. It stacks up everyone. Craig Rowe, in turn, comes down on Rodney Roberts, and that gets AJ Green slightly involved. He saves it, but as Roberts is going for the slide, Brandon Gillis, comes in swinging, hits the back end of Roberts' machine hard, and that ultimately takes him out. Heavy in damage on the Ford Mustang Dark Horse, and Brandon Gillis is out of the second duel tonight. Watch this from Gillis's car. There's the spinning Roberts.
Boom.
Nowhere to go.
Just sounds like an explosion from the in-car cam. And it is a rough hit for number 9 car, one of the independent drivers in this series. And it looks like we've got cars down pit road. Colin Forster will be there, and we'll get another replay on the right-hand side of your screen on what happened there with the accident behind. So this is looking off the back. There's AJ Green back there, and everyone will stack up. You'll see them slow down right there, Francisco, and there's where the hit comes around for Rodney Roberts.
Yeah, so he's going around. He thinks, okay, I have minimal damage, and then boom. Wow.
A rough hit for Gillis, a rough hit for Rodney Roberts. Both of them probably done here in duel number 2. Some strategy on pit road. We saw Colin Forster there. He recycles, it appears, in about 18th place. Everyone 17th on back has come down, and in turn leaves Steven Stempian as the man up front. I guess, Keelan, we're just having a trade for engine expirations here in the duels tonight. We had Steven Stempian blow up in the first duel not too long ago, and it's Dane Cruz who causes the yellow in turn by blowing up in the middle of the field.
Yeah, unfortunate for Dane Cruz because his first duel did not go his way either. He got a 32nd place finish in that one, so his average finish is not great, and he'll have some work to do next week. Same for Rodney Roberts. He finished 34th in the first duel. He'll have some work to do. Brandon Gillis, he finished 19th in the first duel, and he's going to end up pretty tore up at the end of this thing. So a lot of guys who needed a good run after a poor Duel 1 result aren't going to get it out of that yellow right there. But a guy who does need a really good one, Steven Stempian, who finished dead last of the cars that made a lap in the first duel in 35th. He needed a miracle, and right now he's working on that miracle, trying to put his car on the front row for next week's season opener.
And if he doesn't win this duel with this format, it will average out the finish from the first duel, where he basically was at the very end of the field, and wherever he finishes here, whether that be up front or whether that be all the way at the back with a toasted race car. But Steven Stempian, the Massachusetts driver, in his first season with KBueno Racing Jr., the auxiliary team for KBueno Racing. We know the star-studded lineup of guys like Jaden Porter, Luke Canup, of course, the champion, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, but the three-man team for KBueno Racing Jr., Francisco, is a very diverse one. We don't see Steven Maggio in any of these duels, but we do see Stempian here, and then we saw shades of Rodney Roberts, of course, before that incident, but very excited to see what that three-man team does this season.
Yeah, certainly a very fascinating group to look forward to going into the season. I think those guys are definitely guys that can be contentious at certain spots. I've seen Steven Stempian win a race in the 4-Wide Racing Series previously, so he definitely has something to prove. Rodney Roberts is a veteran of the series. We feel like he can do a pretty good job, and we'll see what Steven Maggio is able to do when he decides to join full-time once the season gets going. You see Michael Newborough on the screen, pitted on 1 to green. Looks like he's going to drop to the back of the field for this restart, as we'll have 17 laps to go when we take the green.
So similar to the first caution in the first duel, Keelan, we're going to be in a situation where, you know, we're probably going to have another dash to the finish, probably another yellow, just because you're getting to halfway home, the desperation, the anxiety starts to build up, and again, it's a spot on the front row at stake. Who doesn't want a great starting spot at Daytona? We know that the front, idealistically, is the place to be when trouble arises. You won't see it happen as much in the lead pack. You'll see it happen in the mid pack or even all the way at the back of the group. So why not have an outside front row starting spot? And that's where halfway here in Duel 2, things will get very interesting.
And it's a big learning opportunity, too, when you look at the grand scheme of things for this entire season. For guys back there who may not have finished well in their opening duel. Of course, they want a shot at that front row, but they also can take this opportunity as a learning experience. Learn these cars if you haven't run them much before for next week, because this isn't necessarily your big points-paying race like next week will be. As they come to the green flag, Steven Stempian leads them to the green with Kelly in tow. Peel on the outside with Banks. They're going to be pretty even as they dash down into turn number 1.
A pair of Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets on the outside. The Exalta machine and the paulscars.com Chevrolet. Those two cars on the top, making it work. Stempian moving up through the gears nicely, but here comes Peel and Banks fighting back hard on the outside lane. They will lead down the Daytona super stretch by a car length or two.
You see some 3 wide further back as Ethan Fonseca is falling through the field, but the top line is able to get a much better run here towards the front side. And it looks like Lawson Field's going to try and lead this race. You see the action further back as that one car of Lance Hill trying to get up there, and most of the field has kind of recuperated well after that big stack up.
So everyone getting in line. Appears to be no big moves for the moment as we cross the line for about 16 laps to go. And Peel, Banks, they have a wonderful run back into turn 1. They don't duck low. They'll stay trying to side draft those on the bottom. But look at the push from Curtis Kelly. Surges Steven Stempian ahead.
I was just about to compliment those Drinkin' Bros Racing guys. Say they must have been in the lab working on pushing, because they have been successful all night with it. But right as I was about to say that, Brandon Banks nearly wrecks both him and his teammate. As you see Trevor Haley in there behind Mikey Neal in the 88. The top 2 starting to pull away, but it won't be very long. They move up in front of Lawson Peel. Kelly can't stick it up there. And now the 88 car to the outside of Banks. They're 3 wide behind him as the top 4 start to get free.
Brandon Banks in the middle, 3 wide. He finds some help in the form of his teammate, CJ Munier. Puts a car up in the outside wall. It is getting contentious, and they are stacking up big time. About 4 wide for a moment there in turns 1 and 2. They all keep it together. That was CJ Munier, one of those cars in the middle lane, that Lowe's Chevrolet. Still trying to work things through. Now he finds the inside groove, but a big time scare as Stempian continues to lead the second duel.
That was a big moment there. I mean, that's what happens when pushing goes wrong, but it's part of the super speedway racing. The fortunate thing for these guys is that these cars get such a run. They're able to get right back up there, but those big runs causes this in the first place. You see a wiggle there with the 5 car, and it allows the back end of the field to just pull right up, so everybody's all back together once again, and we're able to see what they're able to do. And here comes now the 71 and 36 on the inside. They're trying to make it work like they did towards the end of that first one. There's Curtis Kelly getting side by side with Mikey Neal for the top spot.
Curtis Kelly wants the race lead. He only has the help from the gold Ford Mustang Dark Horse of Tyler Murray, who has stood out here in these first 2 duels at Daytona. But the onboard look here from Craig Rowe trying to push his teammate Trevor Haley to the front. They will make it 3 wide, potentially for the race lead. They do. Trevor Haley on the very top. The push from his teammate and firefighter Craig Rowe gets Trevor Haley to the front with Escamilla 3rd in line, and Nicholas Bauman for Dark Horse Racing. All 4 of them taking over control.
And that inside lane sorry, Keelan, that inside lane just absolutely lost it all completely. They have fallen all the way through with that stack up on the tri-oval, and they have lost all sorts of momentum. And with that, Trevor Haley is able to capitalize and take the lead on the high side. Oh, and around goes AJ Green.
AJ Green for a spin down the super stretch. Will we stay green? In turn, he's losing all the track position. He saves in the grass, and we will stay under green flag conditions. AJ Green going around all by his lonesome as Trevor Haley continues to lead. We'll get a replay on the right side of your screen, courtesy of our KBRN side-by-side. And Francisco, what happens down the super stretch to get Green all up in trouble?
Well, he's right here, and it's when I was talking about the cars are able to get right back to each other relatively quickly. He darts down to the bottom here, just in front of that 91, and a huge stack up. Has nowhere to go, gets hit at the same time, and that sends him sliding through the grass, through that road course section, and loses all that time. Good job not to hit the inside wall, or even the outside wall for that matter. Just loses a lot of time. He's now 15 seconds off the lead.
Well, Keelan, are the lawnmowers mad about that slide?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to ask Glenn, see what he thinks about it. Might be taking some of his business away.
I mean, the good thing is that in real life, there's no more grass.
That's right. They paved all of that in reaction to Ryan Priest's hellacious crash in the 2023 Coke Zero Sugar 400, but they haven't modeled that yet in iRacing. Maybe they will over the next year as they try to get their NASCAR 25 game going for console gamers and possibly PC gamers, and as they attempt to get every single NASCAR track reimagined and refreshed, they'll probably take a look at the World Center of Racing and get things going. They are shuffling up right beneath the top 5. That was Jaden Porter, the KBueno Racing Chevrolet, getting out of shape. Tyler Murray put in the sucker hole, and look who's right behind him, Keelan. Lance Hill, who was at mercy of being put a lap down earlier in this duel.
Yeah, he was back there in that pack of 2 cars we saw earlier, and now he's up here just outside the top 10, trying to make a move. As you see the bottom, try to get organized with Kevin D'Elia on the inside, leading him in that 53 machine. Not even going to try to pronounce the sponsor on that car, as he's going to get split 3 wide. Tyler Murray makes a move through the middle. Trevor Haley, who has historically been good in this series at Daytona with a couple top 5 finishes last year, continues to lead.
Nothing quite like having the FCC on your tail after saying a word like that. Brian Dixon sliding up into Daniel Moore, getting him floating near the outside wall. We're still 3 wide for several rows deep, but they are losing a ton of ground. Trevor Haley, who led some laps in Duel 1, back in the command position, coming to 9 laps to go. But Francisco, when does the pressure turn up if you're that driver in the catbird seat?
It starts to turn up inside 5 to go, because at any time they can make a move to get by, and you have to be ready for it. It's so difficult to properly block these things without wrecking your own race car, so it definitely becomes very nerve-wracking inside of 5 to go.
And here's an onboard look with Lance Hill, who we saw fall off the draft earlier in this duel, but the caution got him back in line, gets him with the 53 of Kevin D'Elia for not Stonks, but still kind of Stonks. Lance Hill, the affiliate teammate from Stonks Motorsports, and they're taking over the lead. Tyler Murray, despite some wiggles, another one there off the push from Trevor Haley at the outside of 3 and 4. He holds on to the front position on the outside lane, but Keelan, who wants to go up there and who will be most likely to? Coming down to the race, looks like caution flag is out. Someone found a problem at the back of the field. Now we'll slow the field down. We're going to try and diagnose the situation, but it appears Adam Alashire has picked up some right front damage. Francisco, could that be the former Daytona winner getting some hits?
I believe it was the 91 of Alashire. Just trying to see exactly how this started, as it was towards the back end of the field. It looks like there was some contact just ahead.
Oh, with the Duel 1 winner, Tony Kivet.
Yes. That sends him around just in front of that 89 of Munier, and kind of slows on the racetrack. It didn't really go too far sideways, but I think that was enough for iRacing to call it a caution 8, and he has some suspension damage because it's kind of crab walking a little bit.
Just comes right down into Kivet and goes for the slide. There's a slight hit he'll take there from Munier's machine. Not the worst damage in the world to pick up, but for Alashire, who's trying to get a nice average finish over the first 2 duels of the night, well, this one certainly won't help, especially now that we're in the home stretch of this race, and we'll have a caution inside 10 laps to go. So with that, Kevin D'Elia holds on to the race lead. The first time we see D'Elia up in front, with Lance Hill behind, Steven Stepien rounding out top 3 position. Curtis Kelly and Tyler Murray bring in the rest of the top 5. So look at this lineup, Keelan. You look at everyone in this field, especially in this main pack, who stands out to you to make a run late? We've seen Kyle Benson try to do that multiple times and ended in calamity, but it is possible to make up a bunch of positions in about 2 or so laps, and give or take the more laps that we'll have in this next restart, and steal the win away. So who do you see be the top contender to make a move through the field?
I think when you look deep through the field, you got to look at guys like Kyle Benson, who's been pretty quick. You got to look at guys like Brandon Banks all the way back there in 15th. We've seen him up running in the race lead here early in this race. He's got a fast car. He's going to try to get up there. But I think one of the more dangerous guys that we got to look at here is maybe that rookie Nicholas Bauman in that 14 car. We've seen him racing hard here early in this in the first duel, and he was up there late. I think if he can string some momentum together, he's going to be a guy that has a shot to win this thing and put his car on the front row. But one thing I'm interested to see on this restart, we saw it last time in the first duel. We saw a couple teammates line up on the outside, and now you got Kevin D'Elia in the 53 for not stonks, but still kind of stonks. And you got Curtis Kelly on that same team sitting back there in fourth. I'll be interested to see if he takes the high side to get lined up with him on this restart.
And curious to see how Drinkin' Bros Racing is going to get their Chevrolets back in line, right, Francisco? Because Brandon Banks has fallen back to 15th, Lawson Peel down to 17th. They made a hard charge at the end of the first duel, specifically Peel, the one who pushed Kivett to the first duel win, but now you've got them further back in the field, and it appears Dark Horse Racing has this thing all under control, given how much numbers they have up here.
Oh boy, can anything change in an instant at this racetrack specifically? We've saw just how much they can change in Duel 1. Who's to say that won't be just the same case here in Duel 2, especially since we'll have about 5 laps to go when we take the green flag here. A lot can happen in those 5 laps at Daytona, Kenneth. We've seen it, how much they can change in just a quarter of a lap. So these guys, with all the positions and all the math now determined, and all they have to do is just get the best possible result now, I think you'll see some guys be more aggressive in this duel than they were in that first one. So definitely going to be on the lookout, and it might not be the last restart.
So on the front row for this restart with about 5 laps to go, Kevin D'Elia holds control of the field, with Lance Hill for Stonks Motorsports on the outside. Row 2 will feature KBueno Racing Jr., Steven Stempian, and Curtis Kelly for not stonks, but still kind of stonks on the outside. Tyler Murray, who has been a staple at the front of the field over the night. He is in the top 5 position with Season 5 champ Jaden Porter on the outside in P6. 7th will go to Dark Horse Racing's Trevor Haley in his sophomore campaign. Mikey Neal for Buckeye Racing in 8th. Craig Rowe, another Dark Horse Racing Mustang, he'll be in 9th. And Daniel Moore for not stonks, but still kind of stonks on the outside of the 5th row. That's P10. Dark Horse Racing has certainly impressed over the night. And given their experience running together at these super speedways, they may look like a threat for the season opener next week, even if they don't start this race on the front row. They'll try and join Tony Kivett, who won the first duel by 18 one-thousandths of a second. And if you're joining us now on the KBueno Racing Network, we really appreciate you tuning in to the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. We've got so much more excitement coming up for you over the next several months as this series goes back into full swing. Kevin D'Elia and Lance Hill rise out of turn 4. Pace car will look to the left and enter pit road for what might be the final time. Duel 2 coming down to the final 5 laps at the World Center of Racing. Left-hand side, the front row. Right-hand side, Curtis Kelly in the 2nd row. Green flag back in the air from Daytona.
A lot of times on super speedways, this 2nd row is what can determine who leads and who can win a race. And look at that restart by your race leader, Kevin D'Elia. He's able to jump up in front of Lance Hill, and it's going to clear the entire outside lane for at least the top 3 or 4 positions.
And this is what we saw, Keelan, in Duel 1. So many of those on top getting the preference, and a lot of those guys teammates for either Stonks Motorsports or not Stonks, but still kind of Stonks. A ton of affiliate drivers. Stempian all by himself with Tyler Murray trying to help Trevor Haley, looking to sting up through the middle, but so far, D'Elia in control as they race for 4 laps to go.
Couple affiliate teammates out there leading this thing up on the top with Curtis Kelly, Jaden Porter for the KBueno Racing team sitting back there with Neal in the 88. They're 3 wide, though, all behind them, and there you see Porter making a run to the outside.
Oh, they're crashing in the back.
Break up these teammates.
Big time spin. Michel involved. Several cars get into it. Craig parks there too. Yellow flag flies with 4 laps to go. And there is Craig Park's Chevrolet torn up.
You just kind of figured it wasn't going to be the last restart that time. These guys are getting so antsy, and you just know that it's go time, and eventually the push goes wrong. And it looked like it was some overall general contact that happened with Michel. Kind of sends them going around. They're just kind of bobbing and weaving and checking up. You see contact with Parks, sends him up the racetrack, comes back down, and that is a hard hit there for Bishop.
Bishop had nowhere to go in that bit of contact to look on board with the Bayside Ford Mustang. Thought he got away from it until the last moment.
Yeah, just unfortunate for him. Just really had nowhere to go in that situation. They just stack up, and there's runs that are coming in from behind you, and I mean, that's just a byproduct here at the back of the field, but that's just what happens.
So Kevin D'Elia will pick up the iRacing official pace car. Maybe one last look at that incident, but for right now, that's what's going to bring out this yellow flag and should either get us into an organic 2-to-go restart, but I think, guys, we may be in for a green-white checkered, the first of its kind tonight in the dual races.
Yeah, caution came out with 4 laps to go, so that's definitely going to put us in that overtime window.
So with that, we head into 4-wide overtime for the first time this evening from Daytona. Kevin D'Elia, the man who did find some struggles in the first duel, is coming back with a vengeance here, and he's got a ton of his friends to help. Lance Hill, Curtis Kelly, among those in there. Daniel Moore, several rows back. But the Season 5 champ, Jaden Porter, is the only KBueno Racing Chevrolet in this top 10. Is in here with a possible chance to lock up the outside of the front row. And Keelan, the only teammates he has here are Steven Stempian, maybe Mikey Neal, if we're counting affiliates or former teammates. And then Ethan Fonseca Moreno sits back in 14th place. So for Porter, who does he turn to for some success in these final 2 laps?
I just feel like with 2 to go here late in the race, you'd like to say your friends are where you find them, but I mean, that just wasn't true in the first duel when we saw it, because we saw teammates work together, and that's how this race was won, by 2 teammates drafting each other hard back there. So for Jaden Porter, maybe turn to Mikey Neal. You said former teammate, affiliates, one of them guys. Ethan Fonseca Moreno is all the way back in 14th, so he's going to have to do some climbing, but say he has a heck of a run, he might be able to push Porter up there, especially if we get another yellow, another look at this thing. We could be in for a good one here, but I still go with the, old saying that your friends are where you find them here late in these Daytona races. Whoever's nice to you, or whoever you've been nice to, they'll be nice back, and I think it's every man for himself. This is for a starting spot at Daytona next week. This is to put yourself in a great position in the season opener. I think you got to be selfish when you're racing here late. At least I would be.
Yeah, I get that. And looking back at history here at Daytona, Francisco, success comes around for guys like Kevin D'Elia and Lance Hill. Maybe not wins in the outright sense, but when you look at the last several finishes, specifically with this next-gen car, those races where Colin Forster were able to win, who was behind them? Kevin D'Elia most of the time. Lance Hill was there most of the time. So these guys know how to be there in the clutch moments. They know how to work around the field in the final 2 laps, but it's all about executing. Again, this win only gives you a starting spot in the outside of the front row, so nothing else you really want to have other than a really good restart, of course. But for Lance Hill and D'Elia, they will be inside and outside, so probably a chance for them to either work together or separate come this restart. We'll double up here for a 2-lap to go green flag stint to bring us the end of the second duel, so this means we are extending this race past our scheduled 30-lap distance. And with that, we will bring in the 4-wide overtime rule. So what happens here is that we will have an attempt to finish this race under green with 2 laps to go. Not sure if we have 3 attempts. We'll try and double check that for you in just a couple of moments, whether we do have more than 1 attempt to finish this race under green. But if the leader does get to the white flag lap and a caution does not come out before then, we are racing it to the checkered flag no matter what. But Francisco gives us the update here that, yes, we have 3 attempts. So if we do get a caution before the white flag displays here at Daytona, we will bring the field under caution again, stack them up, and do it once more. If we do end up in the final attempt at a green-white checkered and a yellow comes out prior to the white flag lap, then whoever is the leader at the timing of the final caution will be decided the winner. We had one of the duels back in Season 5 go down that way, where we wasted all 3 of our attempts, Francisco, and that isn't the most fun for the drivers. They don't want to end it under yellow, but when you've got a spot at the front row at stake, anything goes in these final 2.
Anything does go in these final 2, which leads me to ask, Do we see that pace car make its way out on the racetrack again?
I don't know. Keelan, do you think so?
I'm not sure, because we've had great racing, and we've been keeping our nose clean a lot. And we had a 2 to go restart last time, and we made it fine. So I'm gonna have faith in these guys. I'm gonna say we're gonna make it all the way back to the checkered flag.
Well, here we go. Kevin D'Elia, Lance Hill, a bow tie brigade on the front row. Jaden Porter and Curtis Kelly back in the second row to assist. Pace car is down. Attempt number 1 of 4 wide overtime is green.
And that's a good restart for the 53, but too good because he has no help, and the front of the field is very spread out, which lets Jaden Porter push that one of Lance Hill clear. But Porter's actually going to let him go. He's going to back up to Mikey Neal, expect that 28 to get a huge run here and make a charge for that top spot. And there comes the 8 of Steven Stempian, so the 28 has a lot of help. He's going to get into the back of the 1, which forces the 88 to the inside. So here comes now the 8 of Stempian to the outside. The 53 of D'Elia's back on the bottom. They're starting to get runs from everywhere. Good job by the 1 car trying to block it all. And here comes Trevor Haley on the bottom. Oh, no, right goes the 88.
Here comes Mikey Neal up into the outside wall, and Steven Stempian goes hard in as well. A huge crash, the big one, occurs in 3 and 4.
Down.
Kevin D'Elia, Kyle Benson, Colin Forrester, Michael Newbraw, and the list continues.
Same.
Colin Forrester cannot get his Chevrolet going straight. His car is dog walking in 3 and 4, all torn up. And that was a monstrous hit, Keelan, and it all starts with what happens at the front of the field. Some miscommunication, some faulty pushes, and in turn you get basically everyone involved in this crash.
I think Colin thought he won the race there. Been in and around. Just byproduct of hard racing there and aggression towards the end of these things. And the teammates, they found each other there. It all started really back in the restart zone. We got Curtis Kelly couldn't get up to the number 53 there to give him help, and it really stacked everybody up right here when they went side by side around that one. That one of Lance Hill, he was blocking top to bottom. Then a big 3-wide move there, but the turn really happened with the 88 and the 53 right there, which stacked everybody up, and then just one of those calamity-filled crashes that we see here at Daytona oh so often.
Oh, Colin Forrester getting a huge hit in this one. We'll take a look at 2 ends of this incident. That's the outside, and that's the inside.
Oh. Not pretty.
Definitely not.
Sure.
Well, you don't want to be upside down at Daytona. That's number 1.
Well, we've had one in each duel so far tonight.
Well, for the 2-time Daytona winner, Forrester, the driver from Jacksonville, Florida, in trouble. We'll try to get another look at this time from Kyle Benson's number 38, as he was basically in the heart of the accident as it went down. So here's a look from Benson, the defending Daytona winner, trying to get by in Duel 2, but cannot.
He saw he got hit in the right rear, and that's what sends him up the racetrack. Might not be too bad of damage compared to most of these other race cars, but not ideal, of course.
So he's on pit road. A ton of other drivers down there for damage repair, and that will alter their starting position for next week's season opener at the virtual Daytona International Speedway, where we will stay, of course, for that coverage there. So very wild. We've seen everything happen, and that is the product of an overtime restart, Keelan, where all that desperation kicks in, and you're now lifting for the rest of that race, right? You're going all at it for the race win, and just things like that happen with these next-gen cars. You get a big stack up, one faulty push, especially with these curved rear bumpers. We didn't really bring that up, the fact that these bumpers aren't exactly straight. So with the curved noses on the front of the cars, the curved rear ends on the back of the cars, you can easily misalign bumpers and get someone spinning even if you don't intend to have them spin in front of you.
It's easy to get these cars turned around, and it's such a hard car to drive because it's easy to get somebody turned around, but it's hard for them to save it. And that's just how we get so many of these big ones because of incidents like that, but these guys on the front row looking for two good runs because Lance Hill, 26th in the first duel, Jaden Porter, 21st in the first duel, so they're looking at mid-pack right now, but if they can make it to the checkered flag first, they would be putting themselves on the front row, and we've talked all night about how important it is to start up front and keep your nose clean, and that's what they're going for here, but some of these guys have started to make their way to the front that we've been looking at. Nicholas Bauman, he got a few spots on that restart. He's up to 7th. Eric Schaefer, Lawson Peel, a couple teammates in 8th and 9th, so this race is not over for those guys, and Rodney Roberts, who we saw in the air way earlier in this race, is up to 14th right now. So your race is never over till you reach the checkered flag.
It is not. And Charlie Byer gave us a question in the YouTube chat saying, it's a new season. What new names, whether racing for the first time tonight or not, do you expect to see at the top by the end? Francisco, is the list that we're seeing now about it? Or is there anyone you're surprised either not to see at the front of the field or anyone that you're surprised to see so far up right now?
I think everything we've seen so far is basic Daytona, and I think that of the 29 cars we have on the lead lap, I still think any one of them can get a good result out of this with these overtime finishes. This will be our second attempt, so we still have another one in the bag if necessary. We'll just have to see how everything unfolds, and it'll be the one car of Lance Hill in control with Jaden Porter in second, but we talked about this on the last restart. The second row is going to be what makes or breaks that restart launch.
And behind the front row, Trevor Haley's very strong tonight. Brian Dixon, who's shot out of a cannon as of late, he will be on the outside of the second row. This is the second attempt at a green-white checkered here in Daytona to conclude the second duel of the night. Season 5 champ Jaden Porter. Stonks Motorsports is Lance Hill on the front row. Green flag back in the air. Will this be the final attempt?
And you see a good launch for Hill. He's actually able to get clear of Jaden Porter, and that's going to force everybody else behind to try and scramble. The front of the field is very spread out, Kenneth.
And there's no one keeling on that inside lane, surprisingly enough. Everyone's just stacking in line, but is that on purpose, by design, to go to the inside? Brian Dixon flirts down there. He doesn't go, but here comes Dark Horse Racing with Nicholas Bauman getting a push from Craig Rowe, his teammate, on the super stretch.
Got to keep your car in line, though, there. We see Craig Rowe really sideways trying to give those pushes, as now it's Jaden Porter taking a look for the lead. He was in the catbird seat in second, could go anywhere and make a move. Now he's in the race lead, 3 wide behind him. Great block on the 4-car of Trevor Haley as Jaden Porter takes the white flag in duel number 2.
Those are 3 Dark Horse Racing Ford Mustangs that are working together on the high side, but the Season 5 champ, seasoned in everything that he's learned over his tenure, is blocking them all. But can he hold on at the exit of turn 2? Brian Dixon making a charge on the inside.
He's got to run with Eric Schaefer. Schaefer's trying to give him a push. Does Porter decide to block it? Lawson Field's going to try and pull up to the back of Eric Schaefer and give them a shove. Dixon's going to try and close the gap as much as he can. He's going to have the inside here, so he'll have a shot. Porter stays up high, and he stays up there. Here comes the 03 and the 3. They're going to get up to the front of the field. Schaefer gets cleared as well. Does he try to make a move for the top position? And he won't. It is going to be Brian Dixon to come across the line and win the second duel.
So shocking awe, Brian Dixon joins Tony Kivitt as the front row starters for next week's season opener here at Daytona. 2 Chevrolet drivers that we probably didn't expect to be at the top of the list, but Brian Dixon gets the victory in duel number 2. What a wonderful job by Brian Dixon, getting the push from Eric Schaefer at the end. And as 2 cars strong, they were able to beat Keelan, the 4-pack of, or 3-pack rather, of Dark Horse Racing Ford Mustangs, who were pushing Jaden Porter with all that they had on the white flag lap. But it does not matter. Brian Dixon starts outside front row next Wednesday.
I was kind of surprised we didn't see Jaden Porter make an effort to block that run into turn number 3. As we take you all the way back to 3 and 4 on the restart here. This is coming to the white flag. Porter does a great job hooking up with those Fords up there and stopping that run because they would have got by him easily. And you see the white flag lap here, all pretty basic as they come through here. But watch the shove. Schaefer, he's going to give Dixon here. And from this point on, they're pretty hooked up all the way to the end of this thing. I'm just surprised we didn't see any of the 14, or the 28 try to block that bottom because it was obvious they were coming. They just kind of laid over and let those Chevys drive past them on the bottom. And just surprising here at Daytona. That's not something you see very often. You'd think there'd be a little bit more defense played here, but I guess Jaden Porter, he was happy with third. He feels like that's going to start him far enough up.
And no attack in those last several hundred feet. No one had anything for Dixon nor Schaefer on the inside. Lawson Peel once again instrumental in helping Brian Dixon to get to the duel to win, and he celebrates here at the World Center of Racing. And boy, that means a lot for a driver like Brian Dixon, doesn't it, Francisco? For someone who's a smaller driver in this field, not a part of one of the big teams, and spent a long time trying to find wins like this. I think even in the unofficial sense, getting the win in the duel like this and getting a front row start in next week's season opener has to mean a ton.
Oh, it's going to help a ton for someone like Brian Dixon. Has not gotten a victory in 4 wide yet, but something like this could give him all the momentum he needs to get on a good start to the season, especially going into the main event next week. He starts on the front row. Maybe he does a pretty good job with it. We know that even though you can get big runs, that track position at the end of the day really does a number, and it really helps out for just about anybody. So we've had 2 duels complete. We had the 76 of Tony Kivitt win the first duel, and now we have the 03 of Brian Dixon win the second duel. So definitely probably not names you had on the top of your list when you had coming into the evening, but they were both able to make last lap passes in impressive ways to grab the win here.
So special that Daytona brings out the surprise drivers, and we'll get another look at the replay. This one from Michael Newbraw in the middle of 3 wide, and this is again on the white flag lap, pushing Ethan Fonseca Moreno. What happens here, Francisco?
Looks like some contact here, just battling for a position, and he gets hooked in the right rear, and that sends him up into the wall and losing out on a couple more spots as he finally comes around here after the line.
So Michael Newbraw getting a piece of the contact, in turn comes home in 27th place. Let's get a look at your unofficial results here from the World Center of Racing in Duel 2. Brian Dixon starts outside of the front row with this win. Eric Schaefer, a wonderful finish at the end to come home in second. Another Drinkin' Bros Racing driver in the top 5. And then there's Jaden Porter for KBueno Racing closing out the podium. Trevor Haley definitely improved over the first duel and has done so well over the night. He comes home in 4th. Lawson Peel arrives in P5. So a mixture of 3rd and 5th for Peel gets him a really good starting spot for next week's race. Nicholas Bauman in the 14. The rookie driver ends up in P6. Craig Rowe back in 7th for Dark Horse Racing. Lance Hill, who was up front near the end for Stonks Motorsports, is 8th. Jacob Locklear ends up in 9th place. And how about Rodney Roberts, after getting a shunt by Brandon Gillis earlier in this duel, recovers for a top 10.
In 11th is sophomore driver Ryan Pandiscio. Duel 1 winner Tony Kivitt finishes in 12th. Cody Kinsey will end up in the 13th spot. The 13 ends up in P14. That's Lautenslager. Steven Stempian will be in the 15th spot with Legona Murray in the 16th spot. AJ Green with a recovery up to P17. Kyle Benson in 18th. Juan Escamillo in the 19th spot. Ethan Fonseca Moreno in that back part of the pack will finish in the top 20.
21st for Adam Alishire. 22nd is CJ Muner. Jesse Prees finishes in 23rd. Kip Easley, who is so close to that Duel 1 victory, has him finishing in 24th. And it's crazy how just a few feet on the racetrack can determine your starting spot. He went from possibly starting first all the way to being right in the middle of the pack. Kevin D'Elia, who is running up front in this duel, finishes in 25th. Curtis Kelly in 26th. Michael Newbraw, 27th. Daniel Moore in 28th. Daniel Michel in 29th. And Brandon Banks rounds out your top 30.
Back in 31st is the Jacksonville, Florida native of Colin Forrester. Went for a flip late in the going, and that puts him there 5 laps down. Mikey Neal, who got turned late in the duel, ends up 32nd. 33rd for Wyatt Brackett out of Murray Reedy Motorsports. Craig Parks damaged in the midway point of that race. He ends up 34th, 35th. Christopher Bishop, 36th for Dane Cruz, and Brandon Gillis rounds out the 37 car field from Daytona in Duel number 2. Let's get a moment to chat with the man who is victorious in duel number 2 as of recently, Brian Dixon, driver of the 03 Chevrolet. Brian, what a wonderful run for you and Eric Schaefer all the way at the end. What did that white flag lap look to you as you were charging on some of those guys who were up front after the restart?
I was just hoping to get some help. When I went down to the bottom, everybody left me out to hang.
And for everything that went down, Schaefer had your back. You were able to push forward in the second duel when it mattered most. You get by everyone and you take this win. What does it mean for you to get a win like this as someone who tries to go to victory lane a lot? You know, it's hard to get a win in this series in general, but for you, how much does it mean to you to show out the way you did, especially late in the going, and get a win in this clutch fashion?
Well, it means a lot. I mean, it's always a good thing to have a good start at the Daytona. So now I can hopefully just stay at the front when the Daytona starts and see what happens. And if it wasn't for Schaefer, and I don't think I would have got the win. So appreciate it. All the DBR guys.
So now you've got an outside front row starting spot for next week's season opener. Very different from the races we'll run in the regular season and even in the playoffs, where you qualify just a couple minutes before, you find out where you start, and then you start the race in just a matter of a couple minutes. But here you have a whole week to process where you're going to start and what your game plan is going to look like. What is the preparation level like for you as you understand where you are now in the starting grid going to the season opener, and how do you seize that opportunity to stay up front?
Pretty much try to stay up front. If you're going to start up front, you might as well try to stay up there. That's your best bet. Trying to prep for it. It's a super speedway, man. It's a crapshoot. Anything can happen. I mean, one wrong push, your race is over, you know.
Well, for this one, it is success in duel number 2. You start second in the season opener, and we're so excited to see you bring the field to the green flag alongside fellow Chevrolet and DBR teammate Tony Kivitt. Brian, we appreciate the time, but on behalf of your success and your drivership here in the series, who does it make it happen for you?
I want to thank all the DBR guys, Tyler and all them guys for putting this on, and I want to thank Bowie Esports also. Appreciate it, guys, and your broadcast.
Well, Brian, we
Go back
appreciate.
and watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun tonight over the show. Brian, we appreciate the time as always. Congratulations on the Duel 2 win. Congrats on the second starting spot for the opener, and we'll see you there next week here from Daytona.
All right, thanks, guys.
That is Brian Dixon, the winner in Duel number 2. We will turn over to the man who comes home P1 in Duel 1, 12th in this second duel, Francisco, but it doesn't matter. He is the pole sitter for the opener next week.
That is pole sitter Tony Kivitt that is now with us in the booth. And Tony, we'll start off in that first duel, which is the one you got the victory, and kind of take us through what your preparation was going into the duel in the first place.
We didn't really have much preparation. All we did is we pretty much said it's a 30 lap a fix pretty much, and we had to just go for it. Really wasn't no riding around in the back, and just tried to get to the front and stay in the front as much as we could. None of us really fell back, except for Newbraw. But
and of course, you were able to put on a last lap charge in that situation too. So just kind of talk us through that move you made and how you were able to put yourself in that position.
Well, Lawson was pretty much driving the car for me. He was behind me and pretty much telling me where to go as far as, the best place for me to go for him to push me. He would tell me run the seam, go high, go low a little bit so he could line up with me perfect. And he pretty much won the race for me on that last lap. He would tell me in the corner to try to get down and side draft him because he's so good in this car, and I don't run this car that much. And I just going through 3 and 4, he was pushing me, and I just was able to get down to whoever was in second behind Kip, and just kind of side drafted him back a little bit, and and with that, and with Lawson pushing me, it gave me the momentum to get by Kip. But that was cool. And it didn't matter. Either one of us won. That would have been cool.
And of course, it was you that came out victorious in that. And knowing that you had the pole position secured, how did you go about racing this second duel, knowing that the top 10 average finish were the ones getting points?
I was trying to race it the same way. Try to get. I think I was running 8th at one time with like 10 to go, and to myself, I'm thinking, well, I should be good here, and I got side draft one time. I think Tyler was in front of me, and he went to the middle, and just that little bit of gap, and I lost like 20 positions in 2 laps, running on the bottom, and that's when Brian and Banks, they were in the middle, and Banks was pushing Brian, and when Brian side drafted me, I could just feel the car slow down, and but the plan was just to try to run up front, same as what we did in the first one. I'm not that good at these cars, like you say. I don't run them that much, and I understand the air, but I don't do them enough to really know them too well.
Well, you did good enough tonight, because that means you're starting on the pole for the main event next week, and just kind of give you the stage to give the shout outs to everyone that helps make this happen, that is a part of your team and yourself and your racing, that helps you get here to be in the pole position for the main event of the 4Wide Racing Daytona.
First, I'd like to thank my wife for letting me get on here and have a good time racing, and then I'd like to thank you and Kenneth for the great broadcast y'all put on. Y'all, the best broadcast out there, in my opinion, is this broadcast for sure. And I'd like to thank Tyler and all the admins. They put on a fun league. We've been running this league now. I think first season I ran was ARCA, and so it's been like 5 or 6 years or seasons. And just have a ball in it. It gets hectic at times, and people get their feelings hurt, but it's fun. We have a good time. I'd like to definitely thank my DBR teammates, because they help me out so much. We all help each other out, and the faster guys, Lawson, Schaefer, Banks, especially in this car, they really try to help us out. Joe tries to help people out too in this car. He's good in this car, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and I also like to give a shout out to EPI for all my open setups, and also Paul's setup shop for all the fixed setup shop work we do for fixed setups.
We appreciate the kind words, Tony, and of course you'll be rolling off from P1 in a week's time for the main event, and we wish you luck going into that event. Rest up. It's not going to be easy seeing 40 cars in your rearview mirror.
Oh, we'll be good. All right, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
So that is Tony Kibbett bringing up the front row here. He will start on the pole for next week's season opener right here at the World Center of Racing. We have official confirmation as to who will start where. We obviously know what the front row is going to look like, but here's what everything else is going to pan out with, courtesy of our league owner, Tyler Murray, as he worked hard to get all the stats together and get everyone's average finish all together as well. So it is the 76, Tony Kibbett, who wins Duel 1. He will be on the pole with Brian Dixon in the 0-3 on the outside of row 1. Back in third will be the 12 of Lawson Peel. The 14 car of Nicholas Bauman will be outside of row 2 in P4. Rounding out the top 5 will be Trevor Haley for Dark Horse Racing. And then Ryan Pandicio up in a high spot. P6 is where he'll start the opener next Wednesday. Craig Laumslager will roll from 7th place, 8th place to Kyle Benson in the 38. Jaden Porter, who finished 3rd in this duel, he will be in 9th, and rounding out the top 10, Francisco, it appears, will be the 3 of Eric Schaefer, who pushed Brian Dixon to the win in the second duel.
Indeed, the 27 is going to be rolling off in the P11 spot with the 48 of AJ Green in P12, 36 of Tyler Murray is going to be in the 13th spot with Curtis Kelly in 14th. The 24, I believe that is. Yes, the 24 of Craig Rowe is going to be in the 13th spot there. And the 1 of Lance Hill is going to be in 16th. The 89 CJ Munir will be in 17th with the 41 rookie driver Juan Escamilla is going to be in the 16th spot. 16th, I believe. I'm not sure. It's kind of out of order on the side I'm seeing it in, so I'm just kind of trying to keep count. The 84 is going to be in the, I believe, 17th position. The 91 of Adam Alistar is going to be in the 18th position, with the 88 being in 19th and the 77 rounding out your top 20 starters.
And back there will be Rodney Roberts, and then the 97 of Cody Kinsey. The 25 of Daniel Michel will be in the mid-20s with Michael Newbraw there. The 0 of Jesse Prees. Then in the 8 of Steven Stempian, of course, with the engine expiration in Duel 1. And then this finish here in Duel 2 puts him deep in the field. The 17 car of Craig Parks with a deep start. And then behind them will be the defending champ, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, appears to round out the top 30. Behind them will be Colin Forrester and Kevin D'Elia. Then for the 9 machine, that will be Brandon Gillis, alongside the 5 of Brandon Banks. Then Christopher Bishop, Dane Cruz, Wyatt Brackett, Austin Reedy, Luke Canup, and Nicholas Vizzuti. If you didn't hear those names at the bottom of the grid throughout the night, that's because they asked for waivers prior to the drop of the green flag in either of the duels. So it's Austin Reedy, Luke Canup, Nicholas Vizzuti, Rodney Roberts, and Craig Parks who asked for waivers, but Parks and Roberts did run the duels tonight, so it's basically Vizzuti, Reedy, and Canup who did not show up tonight. They will start deep in the field at Daytona, and as we look at the schedule, Keelan, well, we've got the World Center of Racing next up, but it will be a much longer race and a lot more at stake, a playoff spot.
A playoff spot on the line, and it's a points night too, because for some of these guys who may not be expecting to win a race this year unless they have some calamity at Daytona or Talladega, there's some of those guys who have accepted, hey, it's going to be hard to win a race. Let's go points race and try to point our way into the playoffs. And that's where a lot of these speedway tracks like Auto Club, Vegas, Chicagoland, Charlotte, Atlanta, tracks like those, they're going to mean a lot. But I know some guys who are looking for that playoff bid starting next week at Daytona are guys like Brian Dixon, who won the second duel. I was just looking back, doing a little research out of curiosity. You'd have to go back to season 5 to find Brian Dixon's last race, which was at Talladega, and his last top 10 finish came in season 3 at Talladega in December of 2021 here in the 4-Wide Racing League. So a lot at stake for guys like Brian Dixon, who may not have the best runs week in, week out. A win next week could change your entire season, put you in a playoffs. You're going to be looking hard for a win next week, because it can mean the difference between a shot at a championship and not.
So we head back to the World Center of Racing. We stay in Daytona Beach for the first race of the Season 7 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series. That comes your way 1 week from tonight, September 18th at 9 p.m. Eastern. You'll find it right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. So for Tyler Murray and the entire admin team and council at 4-Wide Racing, for everyone at the KBueno Racing Network, Charlie Beyer, and for the broadcast crew tonight, my colleagues in the booth, Francisco Bacallao and Keelan Belsha, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Daytona. We'll be back here next Wednesday for the opener of Season 7. But until then, Tony Kivitt, Brian Dixon, the front row for next Wednesday's opener. And we are